Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Is it working now? Is it working now? Okay, sorry about that. No idea what that was all about. I guess what I get for making a video, I guess. Anyways, welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate, hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thug, aka White Boy D Boys, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. And I'm here to tell you that Jesus loves you and Christ is King. Unfortunately, alongside some pretty other terrible things. So quiet, so mysterious, everybody's saying. That's funny. Good to see everybody in here. Zero Infinity Live, Mitchell Black, Joshua VanDerNoord, Carrie Von K, St. Jude, Uncle House. Definitely not an AI bot. That's a new one. That's funny, though. Good to see you, man. World Champion, Mr. Moss, all of you guys. Good to see everybody. Yeah, Ruin stream. All right, we got to restart. I guess I'll be back tomorrow. Very funny. Very funny. Well, right off the rip, make sure you smash the like button. Obviously, it does help the show tremendously. And I would be remiss if I did not remember to shout out NAV Metallurgy, the singular and sole sponsor of the show at this moment. Shout out to them, NAVLLC.com. Check out if you want any kind of custom 3D print or light box. They do great work. So to get into it for today, we actually have a good bit of stuff to get into. It's actually going to be a lot of reactions today as we get through it. Good to see some of the new guys in here too, as well as some of the old people. Ronnie Champa, Drift Speed, Hilton Head. Good to see you guys in here too. And really, the majority of the show today is going to be revolving around the fact that the Israel lobby has actually gone knives out on two distinct people. We have the reaction, which is going to be the main featured story, which is the knives out reaction to JD Vance, because he entertained and went on the Joe Rogan podcast. The second individual is one that's been happening behind the scenes and been going on and now reaching ahead with Alex Bruesewitz, who I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, Alex Bruesewitz. For those who don't know, Alex Bruesewitz is he's one of these lead senior, I wouldn't call him a senior official, but he runs one of these social media firms, basically it's the Never Surrender Pack is who I believe he operates with. And he basically does a lot of the handling of social media pages.
You don't seem to understand. Earth isn't yours.
Huge.
Mitch sent $5 to all my niggas in the chat.
Huge.
Good morning, everybody! You already know what I'm about to be on, so I don't give a fuck about
That's funny.
You other motherfucker. Yo, like, what the fuck is you doing, bro?
I haven't seen this in so long.
You got tats all on your face. You look dirty as shit. You need a haircut. Like, what the fuck is you doing, bro? You even got $100 in your pocket?
That's funny. This guy used to be huge on Instagram.
What are you doing? Like, is you really out here getting to a fucking dollar? What car are you driving? Are you
W to Mitch. Appreciate it, man.
What you doing?
W to Mitch.
It's not adding up. Like, it's making your neck turn a different color. Like,
I wish we could get back to the AI days. Not the AI days, excuse me, the IG days.
They started at $11 now. Like, we can really get you in there. Like, what is you doing? Do you want to get some money? Do you want to get a real check?
I haven't heard somebody yell good morning like that in a long time. I forget who that guy is in particular, but when I used to be a lot more on Instagram than I am now, I remember his content being up and all over the place. I think he would just yelled was his content. Not surprised. Easy as black. Anyways, good to see everybody in here. That was hilarious, though. I appreciate it, Mitch. And W for that. Also, 2 side points real quick before I get into it any further. The first side point is I have pulled back the frequency of ads. It's like the lowest frequency as possible. I'm still experimenting with if it increases the discoverability of the show. Again, this is only the second stream ever that put ads on. I really don't enjoy doing it, but I'm trying to also bolster the discoverability of the channel, get past some of this suppression that this channel seems to be under, and hopefully we won't have to do it for much longer. That's also why we'll be doing the videos as well on top of it too. But good to see this. The member messages from Hilton Head as well as Smelly Balls. Thank you guys for being members. I do appreciate it. The other point being, somebody reached out to me, messaged me about not wanting to like throw the show off with the power chats. Don't concern yourself with that. I literally don't mind it at all. I find it I take it as a little bit of a challenge. Actually, it keeps me firmly having to go in the path of having to maintain my thought process. So I do appreciate it. Either way, and again, I mean, it's money, so I'm gonna say no to money. That's actually kind of funny though. Going back to Alex Bruesewitz, in this line of the Israel lobby has knives out for JD Vance, we're gonna be focusing on the fact that Ben Shapiro, as of 4 to 5 hours ago, put together a video, about a 50-minute episode of his, going directly at JD Vance, and he kind of cut it up on a few different elements. He was going at his foreign policy, he was going at his economic policy. But really, the main thing that Ben Shapiro was irritated about was JD Vance's comments about the Israeli lobby itself, and in particular, how that affects and what it affects and what it means for the Iranian MOU. And obviously, JD Vance being the face of this, and for those who might not remember, JD Vance was attacked. The MOU actually itself explicitly was attacked by many people in the pro-Israel camp, that were irritated, saying things to the effect of, and quite simply, capitulating to Iran. And so much of this came and felt like it was coming irrespective of the actual leverage, the actual elements that's happening in the war. And so Ben Shapiro took it upon himself to drive the dagger even further into JD Vance. And now Ben Shapiro is not the only one. Michael Knowles also offered comment as well. But it basically, if you've been on the timeline of X or anywhere else on social media, it has been pretty widespread in terms of the people who are pro-Israel are knives out for JD Vance. And also, he was also attacking other elements in there, like economic policy, like I already mentioned, but also his relationship with Tucker Carlson, some of which we're going to actually react to live on the show. Again, the video is fresh out. It's like 5 to 6 hours old. The other individual, Alex Bruesewitz, again, basically has been an ardent Trump supporter since 2015, since the very, very beginning. Alex Bruesewitz is a social media operator, influencer, campaigner, if you will. And he has his firm, which I'm forgetting the name of now, but he now essentially works for the Never Surrender PAC, which operates and runs a bunch of the different social media accounts from Donald Trump, one of them being the 2.5 million follower account, the Trump War Room on X. And Alex Bruesewitz has been taking heat and been under fire since about towards the end of June, around June 20th, and leading up and meeting ahead until today. And he's been under fire for some of the comments he's made about the foreign influence overall. So what's funny about this is Alex Bruesewitz is really attacking the overall elements of foreign influence involving themselves in our election, as well as just the sentiment building, the narrative building that's occurring, the foreign money that we know for a fact is flowing through some of our institutions, but largely and definitely and explicitly occurring in social media and other elements like that too. Beyond that, what's funny though is that Alex Bruesewitz, he is saying Israel lobby. He is talking about how the Israeli element is involved in this too, but he's talking in a broad sense. He recently also went on to Tucker Carlson. This was probably about a couple of days ago. When he went on to Tucker Carlson, he confronted Tucker Carlson. I don't even know if confronting him would be even the correct words, but he did have a bit of a back and forth with Tucker Carlson, where Bruesewitz gave a bunch of pushback over some of the claims that Tucker Carlson has laid out about Donald Trump, but also some of the claims, even in the more broader sense, of the conspiracy theories of Israeli involvement. And so even Alex Bruesewitz I don't know if it was after he was on Tucker or if it was during while he was on Tucker, but he was even making claims to the effect of and playing defense for people like Laura Loomer, saying things like, to broadly paste in that, the Jews are behind everything. And, he was calling it like lazy, unrefined. It didn't have any strong roots in anything. But he finds himself under attack from Randy Fine and Mark Levin. And the question is, why? Well, the reason why, and going back off of the story that we covered yesterday with the Brad Parscale operation, now again, to refresh your memory, Brad Parscale in September of 2025 had to register under the FARA Act as a foreign agent for Israel. We get this story that drops sometime between the 2 days ago and yesterday, which is supposedly that a senior official, and we'll get to that later, remember this, a senior official, laid out the story that once again, Brad Parscale, people are now going and taking aim at Brad Parscale and his firm, Clock Tower X, which is taking money in order to bolster and gain a certain amount of views. It's something like 50 million views a month. It needs to be creative content, while also then paying influencers on top of this to push and build pro-Israel sentiment. Now, this would not come as a surprise if you've been paying attention, because this is one of many of the attempts that this has been going through, much like when we had the Israeli Knesset pass their bill a couple of years ago, as well as moving into last year, where they firstly 5 times and then 20 times their budget for their Hezbollah wing. Obviously, Israel seeing the writing on the wall in terms of their relationship with America, so they are throwing as much money as they possibly can towards that problem in many different elements. Obviously, you heard things like that were being theorized that were homegrown, like Project Esther. You also have its seemingly sister companion with the same name or namesake. The Project Esther was from the Heritage Foundation, but then you have Esther Project, which was the one that most people were familiar with in terms of the 7K per post proposal, which was you could be getting paid up to $7,000 per post if you were putting forward content and meeting the different view and impression standards. Thank you for the gifted membership, AI World Champion. That is huge. AW, gifted World Champion. Thank you very much. Drift Speed 58 says become a member. That's a huge W. I say all of this to say, Alex Bruesewitz is kind of riding the line. Alex Bruesewitz is basically on the same page right now with JD Vance in terms of the rhetoric of not going out so far as to say, Israel did 9/11 and, Israel, Israel's behind it, like not going that far, but going so far as to say, well, it's obvious. Like there clearly is these pro-Israel attempts. They're getting a lot more involved in these politics. And they're even naming people like Mark Levin, like Randy Fine explicitly from places like the Jerusalem Post and others, where they're taking, the idea is that these people are being whispered, getting the ear into in an attempt to drive policy towards Israel's favor. Now, they're just talking about this in the most generic sense possible, which is this probably isn't a good thing. We don't like foreign influence. We don't like foreign involvement. Now, Alex Bruesewitz specifically, on one hand, is someone who is actively trying to mediate on this level, which is he's not going so far. He's like defending Laura Loomer, okay? But that isn't enough. It's not enough to ride the fence and only be concerned about America, especially not for the Israeli lobby. So this is where it kind of gets concerning, because Alex Bruesewitz is basically in a free-for-all fight between both Mark Levin and Randy Fine. Mark Levin joining Randy Fine. Randy Fine was one of the first ones to start going at him. Mark Levin calling him like a useless or embarrassing thug. Mark Levin also engaging in, I don't know what you'd say, just his typical kind of banter, just screaming at the top of his lungs and calling people anti-Semitic. Randy Fine doing the same thing towards Alex Bruesewitz. And the reason being is because Alex Bruesewitz is upping the pressure on Brad Parscale with this now newly coming to the news, rising to the forefront of the news, this foreign influence operation, and one particularly being done by someone who is literally a foreign agent. So there's a bit of this back and forth. The end result of this has been, where this has gone now, is supposedly, and it seems to be contradicting, we have one report that says that Randy Fine, although he wasn't quoted, is that Randy Fine is actually attempting to strong-arm Donald Trump. poor usage of language in that. But the effect is supposedly Randy Fine is essentially arguing or saying, at least behind closed doors, that he's going to be unwilling to vote further for anything for the pro-Trump agenda or for Trump or for MAGA until Alex Bruesewitz is fired or the ties are separated from Bruesewitz and Donald Trump. Mark Levin is now also joining this choir. However, TMZ DC caught Randy Fine a few hours ago. It's been about 6 or 7 hours ago while he was on his way walking down through one of the halls. And they have about a 2 to 3 minute back and forth where it's really odd because on one hand, Randy Fine is saying, no, like I've always supported Trump, but he also doesn't deny it. And at the end of the TMZ back and forth, he says, well, you know what? I think that certain things should just be held, within the family. I think family disputes should be handled inside of the family. So he doesn't overtly confirm it and he doesn't outright deny it, which is, of course, convenient. But that's one story, and that's maybe the lead-in story to where we are with Randy Fine and JD Vance and Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles and many more beyond there. So that's kind of the gist of what the story is. So we're going to start with some of this stuff with Bruesewitz before we lead into where it is right now with Ben Shapiro and JD Vance. And Ben Shapiro went so far to liken JD Vance to both Bernie Sanders and Obama. Now, Obama is actually more accurate than most people would realize, obviously, for the Manchurian candidate ideal. If anything, maybe JD Vance is maybe more Manchurian than Obama ever was. So he's attacking him for trying to appeal to the left. He's attacking him for trying to appeal to Rogan's audience. And there's just a lot of just nonsense inside of there. Those are the two main featured stories we'll get into. Tonight, however, there's going to be a 9 p.m. Eastern primetime address from the president towards the nation. And this address specifically is about supposedly Chinese and foreign interference. So once again, foreign interference, foreign involvement, and specifically to the tune of China interfering in the 2020 election. And there have been some previous reports. I don't really know what to believe about this, but I will throw them out there. I saw one report, this is about 3 or 4 days ago, and this report said that this was going to be about the fact that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, are actually illegitimately elected because of some of the information that has been since declassified about those results. And coming from the
Real_band_Dilzerian just followed on Kick.
AW follow, appreciate that. Some of the other reports are talking about this actually may be relevant to the involvement with China and COVID. So there's been kind of this like peppering of reports. That's hilarious. Is the Kick thing working on here? I didn't even know that was real. That's possible. Hold on. I can't do the Kick TTS on these ones. I'm sorry. That's hilarious though. I was just like, yeah, I'm blown away that even happened. Like, am I on YouTube or I'm on Kick right now? I swear maybe I am also streaming to Kick. I may also check. I have no idea. He said I had to try. That's funny. That's hilarious. A lot's happening today. So we had that address to look forward to. And even inside of that address, there was a bit of a back and forth between Caitlin Collins, of course, from CNN, and what's her name? Caroline Levitt. Now, what's funny about this, what's curious about this, is Caroline Levitt, in reference back to JD Vance, actually defended JD Vance. Defended JD Vance to the tune of he's doing what the president wants him to do. So there's a lot to be looking at here, but the one thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this also is that the Iran war is escalating. And escalating, but to a certain point. And the reason why I say that and to a certain point is because I'm of the belief, and partially getting this from Nick too, that we're really not going to see anything strong until we get past the midterms. And the reason being, I think it's quite obvious. At this rate, to take the next level, to take the next step towards achieving American strategic goals in terms of settling the nuclear program, we would be looking at something to the tune of having to do some kind of ground invasion, which it seems to be the first steps are already happening to this effect. As in, previously, we were only attacking on the weekends. We're trying to worry about stabilizing oil prices. And everything was always kind of one for one. You know, we strike them, they strike us. It's all equal, right? It's like the proportion of our attacks are equal to one another. That is not the case right now. Right now, it seems to be that we are trying to overwhelm them, but specifically overwhelm them on the southern coast. And the reason being that we would try to overwhelm them on the southern coast is because it would, strategy would tell you, if you can overwhelm them and you force them back, force them away from the coast, this does open up a lane in which we can ensue a ground invasion. We can put boots on the ground. And this would be similar to the vein of trying to go after something like Karg Island or one of the other islands that have been mentioned in terms of going along with one of these plans. So that, I think, is ultimately not going to be something to be paying attention to until we get past the midterms. And the reason being, obviously, is because war never plays well in terms of voting. Going to war, wartime presidents is a different thing, but in terms of the overall sentiment of the American populace of the Iran war and the way that it's reflected and the way that it has drugged both JD Vance and President Trump, as well as everyone else attached to the administration, their favorability, their polling, all of it's been drugged down to the bottom of the earth. And we also know that JD Vance is heavily aware of this, which also explains why he's trying to get ahead of and putting his face on the MOU, wanting to get ahead of this so he could claim that he would be the one that got the peace deal. There's a lot of things at work here, but really we're going to be taking a look at the main featured stuff. It's specifically about the Israel lobby and their attacks on JD Vance. And we're going to get a good portion of Rogan because Ben Shapiro did clip a lot of Rogan inside of this. So one thing also, too, is that Axios pushed an article in reference to the PrimeTime address tonight. And it was inside this article that I found pretty intriguing because the article on one hand is like addressing that Trump is going to be doing this, but they also make all of these notes about how it's already been debunked, these claims, election fraud claims already been debunked. Fake news, you know, Trump's lying again. But they do make the point, which is to say that no matter what, like carriers, these different legacy and establishment news companies have a decision to make, which is if you air it and you're one of these news agencies, these news companies that spent the better part of the last Lord knows how long demanding and screaming at the top of your lungs that our elections are entirely safe, there's no involvement, the fraud is all fake. Well, then you're also airing Donald Trump speaking to the nation that here's declassified information proving that it was actually rigged. Well, that ruins your credibility. On the other hand, if you decide not to carry the coverage, you're not going to do it. Well, it's also negative credibility because now people will just point to the fact that you omitted and you avoided and you chose not to cover it so there's no way in which any agency is going to have a good kind of spin on this. So it seems to be that the better thing is probably for most of these people to probably cover it. And maybe the only way I could imagine them trying to escape any accountability of this would be to directly try to fact check it while it was live or Snopes fact check it after it has already been aired. So there's a lot kind of there going on in terms of the back and forth in the credibility of these news companies and news agencies. But in terms of the address, we are going to react to that. I will be playing that and watching it on Kick. And so that's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to try to stream on YouTube all the way until that point. And then around 9 or so, we will be switching over to Kick. We'll be reacting to the address there. Obviously, probably just less commentary for me, more listening. Because when a black woman is speaking, we sit and we listen. Say with me. When a black woman is speaking, we sit and we listen. And that is by all accounts what Donald Trump has become. Very loud, very annoying, and worth very little. So let's go ahead and start with some of the Mark Levin pressures and the Randy Fine pressures on Alex Bruesewitz. I'm going to go ahead and swing this over here and pull it up on the watch screen. So here we go. Pulling over to this. I'll read this chat here from Uncle House. He is the AI wizard here. He is the AI warlord. He comes in and demands everyone listen, and I would also implore you and imply that you should definitely listen to House. He says, Axios co-founder and president Roy Schwartz, lovely name, is an Israeli national, and that key reporter Barak Ravid is an Israeli citizen and former military intelligence analyst. And that is 100% correct. Barak Ravid,
Hacken_Zoomer just followed on Kick.
A huge W for following one kick. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The yes, Barak Ravid specifically came from Unit 8200, which is the Israeli Mossad's specific cyber warfare department. That is where he came from, and so you have Barak Ravid is who's doing a lot in the majority of the coverage of the Iran war. And so I think that House was right to point out and correctly to point out that there probably is some implicit biases here, if not outright manipulation. Not in terms of completely bending and fabricating the facts or the stories, but if he is the one editing and pushing and writing the article, he is more than likely doing so in a way that presents the items to you to make you believe a certain thing in a certain way, or to see the story in a certain way. This is talked about by Nick quite a lot too, which is in terms of the headlines are what are placed in front of you. So before we get to the Ben and JD Vance story, we have to firstly start with when the Israeli lobby was starting to go at Alex Bruesewitz. And the reason why I highlight this is because Bruesewitz, by all accounts, is someone who is like not anti-Semitic, right? Bruesewitz is much more in the line and class of somebody like a John Doyle. Now, I would say I do think Bruesewitz is probably a bit better on these topics and items than somebody, say, like a John Doyle, or you could say John Goyle. But what I would say is Bruesewitz is still not good enough. Regardless, what you are seeing is that everyone is already coming out of the woodwork to call him an anti-Semite. The quote-unquote mind virus is already being pushed again by people like Mark Levin and Randy Fine. You can see this here from AF Post. They say Mark Levin, who, like Randy Fine, is fat, which is hilarious, says Randy Fine is right to derail Trump's agenda to clean out lowlifes like Trump advisor Alex Bruesewitz, contending that they, quote, turn off patriotic supporters. And so if you look at this photo here, we'll read the quote tweet first. It's from Reese Gorman. It says, news. It says, Randy Fine has told White House officials he will vote against every rule on the floor until Trump fires Alex Bruesewitz, one of his outside advisors. And so Mark Levin obviously echoing the sentiment there, saying Randy is right. We have a tough midterm coming up, so he says we should clean house, which is insane. And here's the reason why this is insane. For those who don't know who Alex Bruesewitz is, Alex Bruesewitz, obviously he runs these different firms, these social medias, he's in charge of the War Room and the Never Surrender PAC. Alex Bruesewitz is largely credited as the person during 2024, and remember, he's been there since 2015. Alex Bruesewitz is largely the guy who is credited with the podcast circuit when Trump was going on Aiden Ross. The guy, I mean, we're talking about the person who coordinated it and arranged this, right? Largely to the success of Donald Trump. Now, I don't know how many of you remember the early portions of Donald Trump's campaign, but it was kind of sad. The early portions of Donald Trump's campaign was like, it was curious to see if he was going to even be able to, if he was going to have the juice in the campaign, in the support. Bruesewitz, yes, correct, Jerry Williams. He was the guy who went on Tucker just a couple weeks ago. And this is part of the reason why you're seeing this building. Now, Bruesewitz didn't go on there to chuckle it up and slap the behind of Tucker Carlson. Bruesewitz went on there to, quote unquote, confront Tucker Carlson. It was a lot more of just giving pushback. But again, it's not good enough. It wasn't good enough that Bruesewitz even makes a live personal appearance with Tucker Carlson to push back on some of these conspiracy theories. They're still going to call you an anti-Semite anyways. Why? Because how dare you not want Israeli foreign involvement? How dare you even at the slightest tune, the slightest drop of the hat, remove any amount of aid to Israel? You want anything less than Israel? The moment that you even hesitate, you hiccup, you gulp, you cough, anti-Semite, you're out. That is how in lockstep some of this stuff is. Now remember though, Bruesewitz being largely credited with the success of the 2024 campaign in terms of its podcast strategy, which saw people like Joe Rogan and Vance both go on Joe Rogan. It was Aiden Ross, and there was also Theo Vaughn, and there was many other smaller little podcasts in there, but that was Brucewitz's strategy. He thought pretty well on him, that they needed to reach more of the male audiences. You need to reach more of the male, and specifically younger male. Let's stop doing the Fox News circuits where you're only talking to people over the age of 55. Let's go ahead and do a bit of actually reaching out to the people. And it was around that last kind of few months where he ends up getting a really strong run in into ultimately getting elected.
Yours to conquer.
Mitch sent $5. Me and Smelly Balls trying not to distract Atlas with power chats.
Hey! Stop! Just calm down. Don't do it.
That's actually hilarious. I love that one. My favorite caption with that one is when when I'm around a black person and the urge to say the N-word, you know, like those ones just crack me up. Or when I'm, you know, I mean, I'm sure you already get it at this point, the references. But yes, W to Mitch for that. That is huge. Thank you for the 2 power chats back to back. Thank you greatly, man. I appreciate you. And you, Smelly, even though the TTS threw me off a bit more than I would have expected it to. So I just say all of that to really kind of put it back to you. So you understand that this is someone who has like very heavily and strongly supported Donald Trump, not just from the most recent term into the administration, but someone who's been there since 2015. Now he's being attacked by people who were never Trumpers in 2024. Now being attacked by people who are voting for Ron DeSantis. Now being attacked because he's not pro-Israel enough. And he's an anti-Semite. So what you have now is you have people who joined the train late and only because of what? Because of, it starts with an I, Israel, are now attacking Bruesewitz, who has been at the back and helping Donald Trump for 11 years. Now coming out at him, and he's never really made anything much public beyond helping behind the scenes, but now attacking him because how dare Alex Bruesewitz draw more attention to Brad Parscale? How dare Alex Bruesewitz go at the overall foreign involvement? And again, it's not like Bruesewitz is charging a campaign against Israel. Bruesewitz has been pretty outspoken in terms of the overall influence that's been going on. And that is just ridiculous. You have people who are screaming about Trump. You have people who are, you know, voting for DeSantis or who even knows what at the time, now want to be the arbiters of what's good for Trump, of what's good for MAGA, because Alex Bruesewitz dared say that there needs to be less Israeli involvement. There needs to be less money flowing into our nation that's pushing influencers to try to direct and curate their content to be specifically pro-Israel. Like, talk about a literal joke. And again, I'm saying this as somebody who's not like, I'm not sitting here as like, I love Alex Bruesewitz, you know, no, not at all. But to show you just how intense they hold these values, how high on the priority list these values sit and remain, seemingly. So, to go one step further, he's the co-founder, Alex Bruesewitz, co-founder of X Strategies LLC, you know, longtime Trump supporter. You know, he now works after the election victory. He is the senior advisor to the Never Surrender PAC, which I do believe is the biggest one. And again, he manages the Trump War Room account on X. So I can pull up for you guys so you can see this. I'll swing it over real quick so you can see. This is the 2.5. I'm sure many of you have seen this account before too. It's got the golden checkmark badge, Trump War Room. It's got the square photo, which I didn't even know was a thing. Make America Great Again. I've seen this account more than a handful of times, pushing many different elements too. I'm sure they probably get a lot of play as well. But again, the backlash coming from Randy Fine, coming from Mark Levin. Now, the real crux here is the fact that Randy Fine, supposedly the report says, Randy Fine is strong-arming Trump, or is now threatening to no longer push or vote alongside the MAGA agenda or for what Trump wants, unless Bruesewitz is removed. And so I'm going to take you guys to here now. This is the video that TMZ DC got earlier, trying to get further comment on this report from Randy Fine. Here is the video. Hopefully I'm going to make sure the audio comes through this as well. Once I hit issues, looks like we're good.
You're strong-arming Trump.
No.
You are. It sounds like you're saying, I'm not voting for Save America or for anything until Alex Bruesewitz is out of the Oval Office. He's one of Trump's top advisors.
Well, that's obviously not true. I voted for the Save America Act yesterday. It was the 4th time that I voted for the Save America Act. Proud to do it. We've sent it 4 times. I wish the Senate would take it up and pass it once.
But what's up with this report? I mean, it's basically saying that you're not going to be voting for things that Trump wants.
Did you see me quoted in the report?
No.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so let's do it now.
No. Look, we've got some internal issues about everybody being on the same team, and I believe politics is a team sport.
Yeah.
We ought to be focused on beating Democrats, and we're working it out.
But let's talk about the internal issues, because that's what everyone's discussing. They're saying that you're basically strong-arming Trump until this guy Alex is out of there because he was talking crap on.
I don't think that,
Tucker Carlson.
I don't know that there's they. Look, I have real concerns about.
So you're noticing again, like I said earlier, he's not like, in the beginning he says, no, I just voted for the SAVE Act. But then he's also not denying the further extent of what really the conversation is, which is there seriously like this internal like push right now by you and you who are all in this pro-Israel group, these pro-Israel elected officials and otherwise, people like Mark Levin included, who are trying to hold his feet to the fire in terms of fire Bruesewitz or we're not going along with what you want. And so pay attention to the way that there's no hard denial nor hard confirmation, and specifically some of the final things he says in the last couple of seconds in the clip.
About anti-Semitic adjacent people inside our party. It's why I worked so hard yesterday to make sure that every Republican voted to stand with Israel. I don't want us to end up like Democrats. It's very important to me, and I'm going to continue to work on
So just yes or no. Are you going to be holding out on voting for things that President Trump would ideally want until Alex Bruesewitz is out of the Oval Office or stops advising Trump?
I have never voted against a priority of the president, and I don't plan to start doing it.
Then where's this report coming from? Is it just a bunch of BS then?
I don't know. I've never really heard of this group. I've heard of TMZ. I don't know who Notice is. I mean, I don't know who these people are. They didn't quote anybody on the record. So,
well, I'm quoting you on the record.
You are.
Right now. And your response to the Notice report is, we have some internal issues, but like...
I think sometimes families have some disputes, and it's best to handle those in
And you're not going to give us some real insight to these family disputes. Family dispute sounds like to me you're basically saying to Trump, hey, this guy needs out, and then I'm going to, get back on board. But until then, I'm all out.
I'm one of the biggest supporters of the president's agenda. I will continue to be.
It's not answering.
Because I don't believe that you talk about family disputes outside the family. Hopefully it'll all get sorted out.
All right.
So what I would say is it does seem to be that this is, he is in one hand kind of denying how extreme the report put these things, but he's also not denying that there is obvious internal tension over Alex Bruesewitz. Now, Bruesewitz, I'll take you to this post here. This is Bruesewitz who finally responded to Mark Levin specifically on some of these issues, and he has this highlighted here too. If you read this from Bruesewitz, it says, hey, Mark, I'm getting really sick of you attacking President Trump. Now, where did this come from and why? This is June 20th. Okay, the reason why that Mark Levin was attacking Trump and scoffing at Trump during that time period was because of what? The Iranian deal, the MOU. So much like what's happening even in the aftermath of now it falling apart in JD Vance's comments, there was still earlier on, as soon as it was signed, you had people like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, and others attacking the deal, again, going at it and calling it capitulating to Iran. So Bruesewitz, on this foreign involvement, he drives a nail here, and this is from weeks ago. It says,
You don't seem to understand. Earth isn't yours to conquer.
Randy Fine in the future.
$5 found Randy Fine in the future.
If the Duke's son lives,
now our trade is
my lord,
No way.
word to the witch. She sees too much.
I said I would not harm them, and I shall not. But Arrakis is Arrakis. And the desert takes the weak.
Music is perfect.
My desert. My Arrakis. Why do?
Randy Fine aura, dude? I didn't know Randy Fine had aura like that. Hey, W to Mr. Moss. I appreciate the power chat. Thank you greatly, my friend. W's in chat for Mr. Moss. It's huge. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate you, buddy. The Dune movies are really good. On a side note, the Dune movies are really good. I like them a lot. I've seen the first and the second one. I think the third one's coming out soon, right? I could be wrong about that. I'm not the movie guy. That's Josh's job. I'm just the guy who watches occasionally. But I do appreciate it. Yeah, Randy goes hard. Bro, if Randy moved like that, I probably would respect him. If Randy Fine started floating 8 feet in the sky and wielding magical sand powers, I'd probably be like, hey, you know what? Maybe there is something to this Israel thing. No, just kidding, obviously, but that is funny. So, but to read this final poem, and again, it's about this foreign influence, and so Bruesewitz started early. So this has been going on for some time, specifically since the Iranian MOU, because that's when it seemed to be the most notable and noticeable, was when there was this kind of almost instinctive, reflexive reaction to the deal being signed, that because it wasn't perfect or good enough for Israel, you all of a sudden had everyone kind of change their tune on Trump. He writes here, are you working with a foreign government to try to influence the American people's opinion in President Trump's deal with Iran, or are you just spreading lies and misinformation because you're returning to your anti-Trump roots? And if you go down here, he highlights this portion here, and again, this is from the Times of Israel. This highlighted portion, I'll read the above too to give you more context. Netanyahu believes a final deal with Iran will be secured, but that Tehran will not fulfill its obligations under the agreement, the source says. He, meaning Netanyahu, plans to use media figures such as Fox News' Mark Levin and pro-Israel politicians, Randy Fine, to get his message across to Trump. So Bruesewitz seemingly had stepped on a landmine with this in terms of uncovering and wanting to dig a bit deeper into the overall foreign operations, namely Israel, in this context, specifically asking the question, like, are you working with them to try to drive and shape policy? Are you using your position? Are you being talked to? Is the Israeli government in your ear trying to tell you and convince you and give you points and statements and, note cards to post and rip and attack and make videos about Donald Trump to try to push the president towards a more pro-Israel position or towards something more in the benefit of Israel? Again, a foreign government, a foreign nation. It's a fair question to ask, especially when you are explicitly being mentioned and named in an Israeli newspaper. And not just any newspaper, but one of their top outlets. So it continues. So this is when Alex took up an appearance with Tucker on June 26, about a week later. And this is actually not the appearance of itself, although he did quote tweet the appearance. He has responded, and this is him like laying out all of the things that he wanted to contend with Trump with. So I won't bore you by reading a bunch of the top here, but he says, here's what I told him. It's flat out wrong to claim Trump covered up for Epstein. Trump is the reason we even have the Epstein files. He's the one who had him arrested. He goes on to say that he also called out Thomas Massie as a fraud who never cared about these files during the Biden years and only pretends to now. So you can see, even without going much further beyond here, you can see that Bruesewitz is almost explicitly and maybe single-handedly pro-Trump, pro-MAGA. So not anti-Israel, and certainly not pro-Israel. Now, you could say, in effect, by the way that he's even kind of defending Trump here, that is, a backhanded way to be pro-Israel, in a sense. Regardless, with that aside, it is to point out that he is very timidly and rather surface level even engaging with the subjects. And more on the nose is he's backing up Trump. So on one hand, you have Bruesewitz is by far and been with the Trump administration for 11 years and been one of the top guys defending him over and over and over again. He's only 29 too, so shout out to him doing it at a young age. But furthermore, he's literally defending Trump, going, I'm defending Trump. I'm backing up the Trump agenda. And he goes further into positions on Iran and more so. I'm defending what Trump is doing right now. I'm defending his actions so far. But then he's being attacked and called an anti-Semite by Randy Fine, who we just saw in the video before from TMZ DC, that says that he's always been supportive of Trump. He's always been supportive of the Trump agenda. So what's the miscommunication here? If Alex Bruesewitz is defending Trump to the tune of literally everything he's doing and what's continually going on. Randy Fine is also saying that I would back up Trump. I defend Trump. I defend the Trump agenda. But we have a little bit of a family dispute here. There's a little bit of an internal dispute here. Whatever so possibly could the dispute be? Well, he agrees on everything that Randy Fine agrees, supposedly. The only thing that's out of order here is that Alex Bruesewitz is calling out foreign influence from Israel, while Randy Fine is not. That was the crux to call Alex Bruesewitz anti-Semitic, even though we know it is explicitly true. Foreign involvement in our nation is not a mystery, like, vapid thing that we just don't know. Like, okay, no, we know it's true. And now we know it's not just Israel. We know it's not just Pakistan. We know it's not just Iran. We know it's not just China. We know it's not just Russia. This is just the way and nature of politics, especially in the day and age of 2026. We are in the day and age of fourth and fifth generational warfare. We are in the day and age of both informational and psychological warfare. To say anything otherwise than that is to be dishonest or to be retarded. So what you see here almost explicitly is the only thing that Randy Fine could possibly have a problem with is that this robust foreign involvement of all these other nations in this country, that's what Randy Fine is irritated about. Now you could say, yeah, Randy Fine's mad about, Randy Fine, I mean, it's funny to even say that, but Randy Fine's defending Iranian influence in this country? No, not at all. Literally not at all. Randy Fine wears the little hat, and he is one of the most vapid, not even vapid, he's one of the most just disgusting pro-Israel defenders. This is a guy who's basically become a caricature over the last year or so. Many people have been pointing out, too, while he was on the campaign trail, and even before then, Randy Fine never donned the yarmulke. But he does now, every day. And I think even in the TMZ DC video we just watched, he had an American-themed one, which is hilarious. So, but we continue down here. He goes on to say even more things that he said while he was on with Tucker. He says a dishonest smear to claim that Trump is a slave to Israel. So Bruesewitz is defending Trump against the claims that Israel has control over him. Not good enough. He clarifies that Trump's position on Iran has remained consistent from day one, that Iran should never have a nuclear weapon, defending Trump's reason and motive to continue this onslaught and conflict with Iran. Not good enough. He goes on to call out the hysterics who claim that striking Iran would cause World War III or some kind of global collapse. Again, not good enough. He even calls out the lazy, stupid habit of blaming the Jews for everything. Again, not good enough. He stood up for Laura Loomer, of all disgusting people to stand up for, and says that the smears against her are nasty. Again, not good enough. He emphasized Trump's the greatest president of our lifetime. He challenged him on the claims that Israel's involved with Charlie Kirk's assassination. He defended Erica Kirk. It doesn't matter. It's not good enough. All except for what's this last portion here? What did he find common ground with Tucker? The need to get foreign money, whether that money comes from Israel, Qatar, Russia, China, India, or any other nation, out of the online media ecosystem. So you have two things at play here. The first is to show you that you could check 9 of 10 boxes. Hell, you could check 99 of 100 boxes. It's not good enough. You either wholeheartedly let that thing slide down your throat, or you get cut to the side. Pause, by the way. That was a crazy reference, crazy metaphor. Or you're not one on the team. You either take it and dance like Randy Fine and Mark Levin, or you don't at all. That's the premise here. Alex Bruesewitz is not pro-Israel enough. He's not defensive of Israel enough. And the second thing at work here is look at the extreme reaction towards there being any semblance of paying attention to the foreign influence. And even with them wording it like this, whether it come from Israel, Qatar, they just want it out. That's enough to cause some kind of extreme knives out reaction to Alex Bruesewitz. And even if you go into his replies, I don't know if there's any recent ones from maybe today, but even some of his other later posts, which we'll get to here too, he's just been getting onslaught. Well, everybody knows you're an anti-Semite now. I literally read that verbatim from one of his comments, one of his replies earlier today. Like, whoa. What I would say is that this is why you have to take your own side. Playing ball with people whose strategy, their imperatives, and their supreme principles and objectives that don't align up with yours at all. There's never going to be a world in which you have anything close to even 50% alignment with what's in America's interest and what's in Israel's interest, let alone any other country beyond there. This is what you get. This is what you get for not taking your own side. I will say, I hope this is an eye-opener for Alex Bruesewitz, but like many who have come before him who have suffered the same treatment, it's like they end up with Stockholm Syndrome. And he's going to eventually, I would imagine, in a couple of days. Now, I hope I'm proven wrong on this wholeheartedly. But I would not be surprised if we see an apology from Bruesewitz. Or some other form of groveling to get back into the good graces of this pro-Israel camp. Now, part of the reason I hope I'm wrong, and part of the reason I think I could be wrong about this, is the fact that Bruesewitz has literally he's been blocked by both of them. You can see down here, it's all shaded out. And he says, all because they called out foreign influence campaigns on social media. And this is the same tweet we referenced earlier from Mark Levin. We need to get the lowlifes need to be cleaned out. Alex Bruesewitz, 29-year-old American elite human capital, right? Now, truth be told, I really don't know if he's white or Jewish. That aside, it is still impressive that somebody from that young age, supporting Trump all the way back in 2015, has continued to push for Trump and wield these major social media outlets and then help coordinate 2024 to help Trump win, doing the podcast circuit. And he's now a lowlife. He's a lowlife because he wants foreign influence out of the country. And it's honestly, I think maybe the real story here is how obvious it's all becoming. I think the real story is it's just right. It's literally right there. And for people who continue to deny it, it is like your credibility has to be destroyed. People who continue to deny this extreme length, this extreme kind of hostile influence they have, their credibility needs destroyed and thrown into hell. It could not be more obvious to the average onlooker if you were to just pay attention and look at the timeline and see the reactions, what they're from, and especially if you have an understanding of who the people are in the play. Perhaps there was a bit of what is it? Theater going on here too. It is obvious. And that really needs to be what gets pushed too. It's obvious. And if you're not seeing it, how obvious it is, you need to treat people like how we did in COVID. Like, this is just bullshit, dude. You're just straight up lying. That's evil. Trust me, as I said his name, it hit the dome. Trust me. But again, I don't know too much about Bruesewitz beyond what he does for a living and who he is. Now, I've seen him on different podcast appearances, whether that be Tim Pool. There's another one that I saw him on too, but that was many years ago. Truth be told. But regardless, something that stands. I find it impressive that you have someone of his age, of his stature, and think about it. Back in 2015, he would have been like 18 or 19 years old, helping to build and push a social media firm that ultimately found itself in 2024 leveraging itself to launch Trump to be the president. Now, I think we look at that and it's like, obviously, Trump for what he is and what he became, it was not a good thing, just in terms of the impressive nature of what he did do with the firm, just building a business. But yeah, if you don't support the complete and wholehearted Israeli operation, the Israeli influence operation, and walk in lockstep, I mean, you're good as nothing. You are as good as Nick Fuentes. This is probably the bigger point to make, which is like, this is why getting on your hands and knees for these people is never good. Whether it be for Israel, whether it be for blacks, whether it be for whatever. First of all, you are a grown man. Get off of your fucking hands and knees. That's step one. Stand up, brush your legs off, get the dirt off, and look people in the fucking eye. The second thing is, I don't know how many times and examples we need to see of this before people get it through their head. It doesn't matter. You could have some of the most lighthearted, you could have a joke, and they will call you an anti-Semite for the rest of your life. They will try to destroy you. And no amount of, it's the same thing with like apologizing. These YouTubers who, when these YouTubers do these big fraud things, or like when Logan Paul rug pulls people and he's like, I'm so sorry, guy. It doesn't mean anything. It literally doesn't mean anything at all. And apologizing doesn't change it. It's not going to make people stop coming at you. It means nothing. So from the beginning, you should be taking your own side. From the jump, you should be taking your own side. Why you would even begin to entertain foreign nation interest, that's beyond me. But let it be a lesson, and hopefully we don't have to see too many more, although maybe we will. It doesn't matter. So, moving on to Ben Shapiro attacking JD Vance. I guess we'll hope and pray for Bruesewitz, and perhaps maybe he can see the light. It would be a powerful force to have an American Jew stand up to the Israel lobby. Although I don't know how far to that extent we would actually get something meaningful from that. But we are going to go over to Ben Shapiro. So here's the tweet. I'm going to pull this up first. This is the tweet that I saw a couple of hours ago before I watched the video in its entirety. Let me get rid of a lot of these before the computer explodes. This is what he says. He said, I tuned into Joe Rogan yesterday and heard Bernie Sanders' economics, Barack Obama's foreign policy, and Ro Khanna's conspiracy theories. And then I realized JD Vance was talking. He says, I want a candidate in 2028 who doesn't mirror the Democrats and who can win. Mr. VP, this is not the way. Now, I will say from the jump, I am not pro-Vance. I am never Vance. I have laid out the case for that 110,000 times. Well, not that many times. Maybe 6 million times. Connections with Peter Thiel, Rockbridge Network, Claremont Institute, all of it. Regardless, though, that does not make the criticism of Shapiro correct. And if anything, this is a kind of an odd position to take, but Vance is slightly correct in his criticism towards Israel, while Shapiro is wholeheartedly wrong in both his reasoning and his claims. So we'll go ahead and take a watch of this video here. Not the entire thing, but I do have timestamps here. He'll go ahead and load it. The attacking him for having Bernie Sanders' economic policy is, for one, kind of a bit of a joke. What you do have is you have some of this, which is JD Vance is recognizing and seeing some of the writing on the wall, which is, dude, there is extreme and a strong element within the left, within the Democrats, that they are going to gain ground if the right wing does not catch up to economic policy to where the left is. Now, for anybody who watched America First last night, you would be familiar with the fact that Nick talked about how, in effect, and how dumb some of it is, and how flawed it is, the Democrats are still, by all accounts, more pro and more America First than the right wing is. And you could look at Exhibit A, which is you go to the Thomas Massie Amendment, which was meant to strip all Israeli aid in its entirety. Do you know how many, can anyone on there tell me how many Republicans voted for this bill that would strip the aid? Does anyone have a number? A number. Does the chat have a number? Does anyone know How many Republicans voted to strip Israeli aid? 1. And it was the author of the bill. It was Massey. You did have, it was like 100, it was like 104, I think it was like 104, 105 Democrats voted for it. But this is to show you that on the Israel issue, in and of itself, Republicans are gone. Republicans are cooked. Much like in the same way that we covered with the military merger, all Republicans voted for that shit too. Now, I would go so far, and I have a clip from Owen, I'm glad he agrees. I think anybody who is supporting and actively supporting a merger of our intelligence agencies with a foreign nation should be tried for treason. And that is not a small claim. That is not a joke. I am not joking when I say that. I wholeheartedly mean explicitly Tom Cotton, who authored Section 622, and every person who voted for it, knowing what it was, needs to be tried for treason. This is not like a joke or a funny thing to be talking about. Like, that is the level of seriousness this needs to be getting taken. The fact that a bill would even be entered in to our political system in any way, shape, or form that has any semblance of it talking about merging and forcing the United States government to share our intelligence agency, the services and information and national security apparatus with a foreign nation deserves treason. And furthermore, it wasn't even just that. It was the fact that it put forward statutory obligations and procedural hurdles so that if anybody wanted to stop Israel from getting shared access to our most top secret information, the president couldn't even do it unless there was a national emergency. Treason. Traitors. So, but to go back to the Ben Shapiro angle in this video here, he's attacking some of this from the angle that JD Vance is actually lending his ear, and he's trying to do what I think is actually politically expedient, which is he's trying to meet where the Democrats are on the economic issue. Now, remember, we are like, what? I don't know, 2 weeks removed from Donald Trump literally saying, I don't want housing prices to go down. I want them to go up. We have basically been laughed at and scoffed at by Trump on many of these issues. H-1B, immigration, housing, you could go down the line. And I think the way that Nick even framed this was like, imagine if you put forward a bill that was like, instead of sending $3.8 billion a year to Israel, what if we redistributed that wealth in some form to like that aid in some form to go to Americans? It's like, listen, we're already spending it annually every single year. Like, that'd be a winning issue. Who's voting against that? Just the Israelis? Just the Jews? Okay. That's a great idea. Great idea. Do it. But they won't. And the Republicans voted lockstep to ensure that the bill was rejected to strip the foreign aid to Israel. So you have Ben Shapiro attacking JD Vance because he's acknowledging the writing on the wall, which is that there is an extreme portion of the American populace that is like no longer, like that is getting irritated with the economic status of this country, that knows that the economics is hurtling and bundling towards many of these bubbles, whether it be the housing bubble or the AI bubble. And so he was entertaining conversations about socialism, fascism, communism, making references specifically to like the Industrial Revolution and the ways that it went wrong. And I do believe that at some point he does reference an encyclical from one of the popes. It was Pope Leo XIII. I could be wrong about that, so forgive me. But he references where there has to be some kind of middleman. There has to be some kind of middleman between 6-year-olds working like, you know, in crawl spaces at 6 years old in factories and communism. Like there has to be. So inside of that, it seemed to be that he was kind of getting close to the idea or flirting with the idea that perhaps the system that we have now, the obviously exploited oligarchical capitalist globalist system we have now, okay, we ran the experiment. It's not working. Something foundational has to change. And much like we've been talking about on this show, this is even a right-wing argument. It's a right-wing argument in the sense that our full sending into capitalism has resulted in what? Globalism. Capitalism, a fully free version of capitalism, is inherently globalist. Why? Well, in the framework that's happening now, you have companies that go, well, you know what? Our tax laws here in this country, they're pretty rough. What if I set up an offshore over here? Wait a minute. If I have to pay my employees and I have my setup in here in America, you're telling me I have to pay the minimum wage or greater? They don't have minimum wage in Cambodia. They don't have I don't know if that's true or not. I'm still in a country out there. They don't have minimum wage in. Capitalism is inherently globalism in its freest form. Without explicit restrictions on labor, the offshoring of companies, there already is things on the books about tax evasion, but it's obviously not held up to the highest standard. You're going to get a country where everybody hires H-1B visa immigrants. And the question is why? Well, because they're much willing to work for a much, much lower wage. Why? Because they come from third world countries. Because, in effect, you literally do have H-1Bs operating as a contract that sets in stone and solidifies for a year and more in some cases, a salaried position. And guess what? Even better than that. That employee on the H-1B visa, they damn well better do the best of their work to the T, because their citizenship is riding on the fact of how they operate, how long they can work, how well they work, forgive me. Chat froze. Power chat's just something else, man. It is just something else, isn't it? Where are we at? This one, forgive me. So in the Labor Department especially is why we have to be pushing back against this obvious broken system. And you know, the H-1B visa debate, that turned into what? Well, next thing you know, Vivek Ramaswamy coming out of nowhere on Christmas Day. I mean, he might as well have said "fuck white America." He might as well have stood on a crate somewhere in New York City and said white people are dog shit. We need to be like India and China. And it's literally, I mean, to effect, that's what he said. You know, maybe not as colorful. Because they want the H-1Bs. They need the H-1Bs. Why? Because if you remove the H-1Bs, you actually restrict immigration. What is that force? What happens in that case? Wages go up. Why? Because they have to. Because you have to hire people in order for your company to work. But if you take the immigrants and the illegals out of the labor pool who are willing to work for pennies on the dollar, in some cases it's obviously much better than that, but still, well, that means you got to hire the white engineer who knows damn well what he's worth, and he's not going to go to Google on a 110K basis working 80 hours. He says, you put it at 200K. Put it at 200K. Put it at 200K, we'll talk. But we don't. And they refuse to. Same thing with Chamber of Commerce, always being in the ear. You have, just so many of these people coming out. Like, I believe on one end they're suing Donald Trump, and I'm trying to remember what exactly they're suing Donald Trump on. I think they're suing Donald Trump about Donald Trump's. I don't know if it's executive order, but Donald Trump put out that like $100,000 fee or it's like some kind of extreme fee that was attached to H-1Bs, which is like, if you want the H-1Bs, you have to pay this exceptional fee. That's what the Chamber of Commerce is suing him for. Why? Because it acts as a deterrent against H-1Bs. Look up the 2017 Buy American, Hire American Act. It's illegal to pay H-1Bs. Yeah, but again, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, we put on graph. Man, how long ago was that? 4 or 5 months ago. H-1Bs they are depressing wages by an average of 18%. Especially in the tech sector. I have to go, if you can go look that up, there's from Chief Trumpster as well. Chief Trumpster is who put the graphic and the data together. H-1Bs on average, especially in the overall, are depressing them by 18%. It's something like 31% in the tech sector. Radically underwage. And why is the market rate like that? Who is the market? Is the market majority white people? No, the market is majority made up of minorities. And Chief Trumpster is really good at putting some of that information together. And we covered that. I mean, that was like what? We covered that like a year ago. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. And don't even talk about the job board and the labor market here in this country too. You know, there's still these insane stories of these people, these companies who will, because again, in order to even apply to be eligible for H-1Bs and some of these other visas to allow for you to be eligible to apply for them for your company, you have to meet certain standards, some of which are like you needed to have posted their job to Native Americans for a certain threshold, a certain period of time. And then and only then, if no adequate candidate applies, can you then apply for this or then begin your application for the H-1Bs. And we have stories of all these companies who are like intentionally going to like job boards and bulletin boards, no one would go to, and putting their job applications like underneath other like McDonald's applications. It's like, here's an engineer position at Google, and it's underneath the McDonald's application on the job board. So I don't know what to say when people are going to be crying about socialism. I really don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Because by all accounts, ostensibly, the left is viewing the right wing as this is what capitalism is. Now you can call them retarded, but a bunch of retarded zombies don't mean anything when you're surrounded. You can be mad. You can tell them they're sick all you want. Think it's going to stop you from taking a bite out of you? No, guys, stop. I swear you're infected. I swear I have the cure somewhere. Doesn't mean anything. So it is to say, there is an element of this that part of what I would imagine JD Vance was doing in that interview was trying to meet the left where they were and offer a bit of an alternative. And this is coming from me, who is a never Vance guy. But it is to put that forward and establish that point because Ben Shapiro is a lying Israeli deranged Jew whose only principle and premise is whatever continues to operate and give Israel everything that he wants and allow this extraction of America to Israel. That's what he cares about. And I'm sure many of you who are in here already know that. So one of the first things I want to go to, this is around the 9-minute mark. This actually gets away from the economics. So we'll go around the 9-minute mark here. Because he actually goes at the comments made by JD Vance that many men have made before him, which is that, including people like George Lincoln Rockwell, which is that the right wing has always fundamentally had a problem with capturing the youth, with reaching the hearts and minds of the youth. Why? Well, for the most part, it's seemingly like they just simply haven't cared. And also part of this just goes to just the fundamental nature of what a conservative is and what a progressive is. You have a conservative conserves. A conservative is slow, resistant to change, honors tradition. Well, in effect, that's what it's supposed to be. You have a progressive. What is a progressive? A progressive is someone who is searching forward, wanting to improve. Now, you might say and agree that the directions they're trying to improve and progress are insane, retarded, and are in effect actually damaging or evil, and I would agree with many of those points. But it's to say that is what their operation is. That's how they operate, right? Conservatives conserve, progressives progress. So it's no wonder that the youth has always had an affinity for the left wing, even if it's nonsensical, even if it's crazy, even if it's wild. Why? Because it's seeking what's beyond the hill. It's seeking how do we bridge that gap? How do we best that problem? How do we incorporate this? How do we include these people? Where the conservatives are going, no, thank you. So just even in that, you just have to put yourself, even in like a basic mindset of a young person who's not politically affiliated, which side do you think you would naturally gravitate towards? And many of you are probably the same way. Many of you probably, before even getting deep into politics, you probably have liberal priors. You probably followed Joe Rogan before you woke up. You probably listened to some of these, like, you probably listened and watched some material and like some content and movies that were left-leaning until maybe you woke up. And I don't really know what you can do about that natural gravitation, except for, and I think Mr. Moss is correct here, we have to become right-wing progressives. And by all account, that really is what groyperism is. And, there is nothing left to conserve. Certainly it feels that way. Maybe if I thought about it, I could think about something. But this is kind of like goes into the mindset of also having to engage with the practical reality of we have to begin to reprioritize reprioritize our principles, our aims, our goals, or otherwise maybe the whole thing just goes. Now, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say a right-wing progressive like, Richard Spencer. I think at a certain point, I think Richard Spencer just has become a contrarian to a certain degree. Still appreciate him for what he is. But especially in terms of like the immigration issue too. You have the immigration issue is like, that's one of those things that I think is going to be, it's going to become the next, and I think it already has. It has become a political football. Immigration talk every year. Immigration. And I still can't go to the local Costco without smelling like curry when I get home. I can't take an Uber without, holding my 9 to the driver's seat, hoping that I don't get shot first. That's a joke, obviously. Not really, though. And where are we at? Faced with the fact that if the boomer population wipes out and we maintain the current direction we're going, white's just going to be we're going to just be a plurality. 9 states have already become non-white majority states. And all because what? People keep putting their belief into literal liberal New York Democrats and expecting that in some world a Miriam Adelson $110 million backed man who needed everything and everything to get out of jail or to avoid jail as a 70-some-year-old guy, which is basically a death sentence. And somehow he was going to wield in and usher in these mass deportations. I think the writing was on the wall right at the beginning. It's frustrating. Yeah. Well, we're technically not minority. We will be a plurality because we're still going to be the biggest group of them all. It's not a majority and not a minority, but a plurality. So here's about the 9-minute mark. Let me go forward a little bit. We're about 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes here. And so this is going to be a little bit of this discussion and we're going to see a clip from the Rogan and Vance interview, and then we'll play a little bit of what Ben Shapiro has to say directly afterwards.
To say.
Republicans still fundamentally have a cool problem, right? There's something more charismatic, more cool about the Democrats as opposed to the right.
Did I say that?
So you said something about there are too many dorks or something on the right.
There's a lot of dorks.
Fair. I'd say there's a lot of dorks
There's
on the left.
There's a lot of dorks on the left, too. It's a different kind of dork.
It's a different kind of dork. But the point is that there's something, okay, if you're a pop star, you're a rock star, you're an actor, you're in all these cultural centers, you're more likely to be left than right. And so I think that a lot of young people who are attracted to these population centers, they sort of move along with the prevailing culture. I think that's one thing that's going on.
Okay, but here's the thing. Truth is often uncool. Truth requires you to say the hard things and to do the right thing. And it turns out there's kind of an attraction in that. There's something cool in just sticking by your guns. So I'll be honest, I'm not sure how the vice president wants to be cool. If coolness means just warming over some Bernie Sandersism and heating up a side of Obamaism and spicing it up with some conspiracy theorizing, gotta say, I'm not into it. But unfortunately, that is largely what the vice president spouted on Joe Rogan's show yesterday. Now,
so very typical.
Oy vey.
It is just insane that we have been talking about this, and and credit to Donnie too. Donnie is one of the first people who put me on to GLR. And I will be honest with you, one of the very first speeches, I listened to it in its entirety. I'm somebody who I really like GLR. I feel like saying that publicly is probably not the best reflection, but I do really like GLR. Not in terms of his optics, but in terms of his speeches. And like Nick, George Lincoln Rockwell was very disarming. Like if you just close your eyes and you just listen to him speak, you go, this guy's spitting. Like this guy's cooking. Like hold on, let him cook. And one of the first speeches ever put on to me by George Lincoln Rockwell from Donnie was him speaking to a bunch of college students. And what's funny about this is during the entire time he's speaking, you can hear all the left-wingers and all the people on the college who are protesting every so often when the door opens, screaming from the back, which is actually kind of funny. But what he's saying is that until the right wing manages to figure out how to solve for their major fundamental problem of their failure to capture the youth, there really will be no meaningful change of the dynamic that's at play. The right wing will always have to be playing from behind and waiting for the left to make huge mistakes to then try to come in and clean the problem. This dynamic will not change because if the left is always leading and the right is always somewhere behind them trying to hold them back, the dynamic doesn't change until the right wing figures out how to get out and ahead. But how can the right wing get out and ahead? Well, they're going to have to actually try to speak to the youth. They're going to have to actually do what the left does, which is actually, at least, and when the left does it, sure, they are more America first, technically, right? And guess what? If they're giving money to to brown people who were born in America, that is, I'm sorry, but that is wholeheartedly more America first than giving money to Israel. Cut it any way you want. That money stays in America. That money gets spent in America. Now, it might get spent on Kool-Aid pineapples, and you could have problems with that, but that doesn't change the fact that it's staying inside of America. It doesn't change the fact that it's going to somebody who was born in America. Now, you might disagree with the welfare programs, and you might disagree for the reasons of why they're giving their money, and you might disagree with the subsidization entirely and think that it should be going somewhere else. But that is more America first than what the right wing is. And let's be honest, let's take that one step further. And that same logic, it's like, you know what? Take all that take that 3.3 billion, that 3.8 billion we give to Israel, dump it into the welfare system. I don't care if it all goes to taken to blacks. I'd rather it go to black people, black Americans, then it go to Israel, then it go to another foreign country, then it get wrapped up in some aid package and get sent to Ukraine, then it get wrapped up in all doing some bullshit gender program in Pakistan. I don't care. But that fundamentally is more American than this peace through strength. We have to defend the nation state of Israel. And now take it. Now let's speed up and let's look at today's times. Let's speed it up and let's look at today's situation in America. What do you think the top issue for most people is today? Just not just abroad, not just on the dissident right, but like abroad. Well, it's economics. It's the idea that runs through most people's mind when they're like 18, 19, 20, 21, which is, I'm never going to be able to own a house. Look at this market. It's the job market. It's the economy. And if the right wing refuses to play ball or meet the left where they are on the economy, I do foresee an economic populace coming from the left, probably similar in the same vein of what Andrew Yang used to be. And I said this before too. I'm glad Nick brings him up too. But Andrew Yang was like ahead of his time in the fact of he was looking down and ahead and he saw, UBI, right? Universal Basic Income. Now, and I might even disagree with the implementation of it, but he saw that there was potential for, if AI continues at this rate and people are massively displaced in a broken economy, like, what are you going to do? What is the workaround for this? If the job market can't produce as many jobs as it's losing, and if the jobs it's losing are like permanently, taken away, as in they're automated now, and there's no use or no reason for a human to ever replace an automated system if the automated system is, for one, cheaper and more efficient. So hate it as much as you want. If the left today, and you guys know this is true, if the left wing today started running on giving people stimulus checks every 2 months, they will win a landslide. Why? Because it's something tangible that they actually can see. It is a direct consequence. If I vote this, they win. Now they might renege on their promise, but it's in there. It's like, I'm at least getting something for it. And it speaks to the main issues, which are economic. On top of also, trying to overcome things like, major debt, whether it be, largely student loans, but like, credit card debt, people have been getting put out. And again, a lot of this has just been kind of like this long slosh of what we're trying to even respond to and kind of recover from with COVID and the supply chain issues. So, GLR had aura. He had game. He was spitting. He was cooking. And he was wholeheartedly correct. You have to reach the youth. You can't be whipping up numbers and talking about economy. You have to meet them where they are. You have to, in some way, shape, or form, you need to be able to meet these people where they are. And where are the people concerned about how they are going to own a home? Where are the people concerned about how they're going to have enough money to raise their children? Concerned about, are they going to have any kind of meaningful job? Is the job market even worth it? Is college even worth it anymore? All of these things. So, one portion I will skip here, but I will bring up is Ben Shapiro also attacks JD Vance's idea of meritocracy, and there's a kind of a weird exchange on that. I won't spend too much time on that because I want to get further into like the deeper bits here. But this is around the 17-minute mark here, 17:45. Forgive me. Right after this. Yes, on the 17-minute mark. And this goes, again, back at the economy. And this goes specifically to where he makes this comparison that he sounds like Bernie Sanders. But really, listen to what Vance says, and you need to listen to the response from Ben Shapiro. And then you tell me what you think is more correct, what's closer to the reality, what's more politically expedient, what do you think will reach the ears of the average person?
Okay, if JD Vance and Gavin Newsom are saying the same thing, that is a problem. And of course, the vice president on Joe Rogan also suggested not only the Rerum Novarum, that encyclical ought to be the guide for America's economic policy, but also that AI tech developers, they're actually today's robber barons, which is, again, kind of strange from a guy who made a name for himself by hanging out with the folks in Silicon Valley. Here's the vice president.
Well,
he said the main issue, if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, is that there was a lot of demand for workers, but the inequality in the country got completely out of whack. Like, this is the era of the robber barons. And then the robber barons in both Europe and the United States led to fascism. It led to communism. Again, to this point about giving people an option. If you don't give them a good option, then it leads to fascism and communism. Now, there's this fascinating encyclical written by Pope Leo XIII. I'll send it to you. It's one of the best things that I think has ever been written by a Christian leader, where it's written in the late 19th century. And the basic argument of it is that in the age of industrial churn, there has to be a middle way between 6-year-olds working on the factory floor and socialism. And part of that solution is to give workers a sort of say in what's going on. Give normal people some power in this system. And I think that's the thing we have to figure out with AI.
Now, again, the sort of lie that
before that Ben respond to that, think about how close to left-wing rhetoric that is. That is right, like, but that is again what I've been saying from the beginning. That is explicitly what I do believe Vance is doing. There's a little bit of strategy here where he is trying to meet the left where they are. He's trying to, and if you're running for president, well, you have a whole nation that's going to vote for you, right? So there's some other arguments that Ben makes here too that I think are retarded. But if you're running for president, you're obviously going to be trying to appeal to as many people as humanly possible, i.e., why he's on Rogan in the first place. Now, Rogan has a good mix of an audience, but they, for the most part, are like center left, center, maybe less so center right. So, with that being said, here's Shapiro's response to that.
That technological advancement, it miserates the workers, that income inequality, wealth inequality, these are the problem. It's not distinguishable from what Bernie Sanders says. It isn't. I wish it were.
So, we'll go ahead and let Bernie speak. But if that's the crux of what Ben's argument is that he just sounds like Bernie Sanders. Well, truth be told, where did a lot of the left-wing support for Donald Trump come from? It came from the Bernie bros. And why is that? It's because Bernie basically got collapsed in and consolidated into the system when Hillary Clinton was the one chosen by the establishment to run. Many people who've been paying attention for more than a decade, you'll remember this. And so the Bernie bros were the ones who moved over to Trump. And even further than that, if all your argument can rely on is that you sound like Newsom or you sound like Bernie and you're not attacking anything else, that in and of itself is not an argument. It is just saying you sound like a person I don't like. But just like the other day, we played a Hassan Piker clip on here where he was being honest about Lindsey Graham. One of the few people who didn't sit there and try to glaze him, spin on it, slip it and giggle and put it back in. He was actually honest about Lindsey Graham being a neocon, an Israeli Zionist shell who wanted nothing more than to blow people up for the sole purpose of continuing the existence of Israel. And he probably just had a general love for war. What's half the right wing and John Doyle doing? I'm not going to do this leftist song and dance. I'm going to tell people how it is. I'm going to have an honest and intelligent conversation. And Lindsey Graham was good. What? What? Anyways, here's this.
50% of our people live in paycheck to paycheck, and one guy, Elon Musk, owns more wealth than the bottom 53% of American households. Think maybe that might be an issue that we should be talking about?
And again, in JD Vance's book, Communion, he quotes over and over Rerum Novarum. This is supposed to be the sort of basis for what he thinks of as American economic policy. He writes in his book, the Pope also lays out a vision of society where the state protects the vulnerable, guarantees a just wage for laborers, and ensures that working people have sufficient rest from labor. Not for vicious indulgence, but so they can focus on higher matters such as their religious and familial obligations. Well, I mean, I should point out at this point, Rerum Novarum is not an American founding document. And it is kind of strange, just politically speaking, to be quoting Rerum Novarum as the basis for some sort of American economic philosophy.
So his argument is because the encyclical, the Rerum Novarum, is not a founding document, we should not even consider it. And then secondly, he finds it weird that you would want to match or integrate Catholic philosophy with just general positioning and outlooks of how we should organize our society based around economic principles. There is no argument there. And in fact, he's kind of doing the it's weird thing with JD Vance all over again. Remember the couch thing? He's weird. It's weird. Now, I don't disagree with some of that wholeheartedly. I think anybody who would marry an Indian and have children with them, that's a conversation for another day. But I do this to say there's no argument to this. And Ben Shapiro is basically, what Ben Shapiro in effect is doing is trying to defend the current status quo that we all hate. How is that a winning message? How is this an inspiring anything? So this will be the longest section I do play from here, because I'm going to go from here into probably about a little bit beyond the 25-minute mark. Not wholly entirely, we'll be pausing in between there. But I think some of the main juice inside of this video is between around the 17-minute mark all the way up to the 41-minute mark, but the main stuff between 17 and 25 and a little bit afterwards. So we'll keep going.
The vice president in his book does bash the Reformation, meaning like Protestantism arising, saying that it's a tragedy the Christian church is so divided in modern times. That is a strange move. It's a strange electoral move. Bernie Sanders plus the Pope is a pretty narrow constituency. And of course, the vice president writes at length in his book about the shortcomings of free markets. I think the most kind of astonishing portion of his book is this portion where he talks about traveling to Japan. He writes this: "The first and only time I ever visited Japan, I read a bunch of articles by economists about Japan's stagnant economy. Japan's economy has been stagnant since the 90s. This is just a reality. Economists broadly agreed that something had gone terribly wrong with Japanese economic policy, though they disagreed about what should be done. After about 2 hours in Tokyo, I realized that the dire predictions of the expert class had nothing in common with the actual Japan I saw. Children seemingly no more than 5 years old rode the subway without fear, and the public bathrooms in the subway stations were cleaner than the member bathrooms in the United States Senate. Public transportation ran perfectly on time. Meanwhile, the Japanese had apparently perfected the art of cuisine," writes the vice president.
And again, going back to what we said at the beginning, we're just dissecting some of these base roots of the words and why the left and the liberal, the progressive, always has this natural gravitation towards it. Well, let's apply those. So you have JD Vance. Well, what is he proposing? He kind of got in a little bit of his book. He's saying on Joe Rogan, he's like, I think we need to start entertaining something different. I think we need to really kind of maybe kind of put away some of our fundamentals and address this problem in a different way. Maybe see what's on the other side if we do this. Ben Shapiro is going, no, keep the system the way it is. It works. Listen to me. Keep it exactly the way it is. We can stick to your guns. Do nothing. Which one of those messages do you think is heard more by the average normie person? Just the average person who's dealing and living paycheck to paycheck. Which one do you think they naturally gravitate towards? And so we're once again repeating some of the same mistakes that have been happening time and time again. It's no wonder why I think it's a smart move for him to go this way.
You don't seem to understand. Earth isn't yours to conquer.
At iWorld Champion sent $2 on YouTube. Wagzantium forever.
Huge super chat. Thank you, World Champion. That's a W, massive W. Wagzantium forever. Wagzantium forever. Wagzantium forever. W. Also, I need can you send me the coordinates to Wagzantium? I'd love to go there. But continue.
You ever gone to a grocery store and gotten an excellent batch of strawberries or blueberries? In Japan, every fruit tasted like the best strawberry you've ever eaten, even the most expired pack in a small convenience store. If you're focused on GDP, a $6 pint of Japanese strawberries is no different from a $6 pint of American strawberries. If you're focused on dollars and cents, each contributes equally to the economic indicators. But if everyone in Japan eats better strawberries than everyone in America, the economic indicators have failed to measure something meaningful. And again, he writes an entire chapter about how economics is pretty stupid. Now, that particular paragraph is kind of insane. It's insane for a variety of reasons, including the fact that actually Japan is pretty famous for its strawberry industry. They have a cultivated luxury strawberry industry in Japan. Like, instead of bringing people flowers when you go over to dinner, very often you bring a box of strawberries because...
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? He's like, JD Vance is trying to make like a economical point on this. And Ben Shapiro's like, no, I promise you, you guys don't know. Like, you guys don't understand. Like, Japan strawberries are some of the best. Like, he's really kind of just getting sold. He's really kind of fallen for the Japan strawberry industry. It's like, oh my gosh.
Because Japan has perfected certain methodologies of actually growing strawberries, it would be more expensive to ship that over to the United States. And there are explanations for why things cost what they do. It is also true that Japan's economy has been stagnating for decades. But the sort of disdain that the vice president has for economics, broadly speaking, because he has vague and unspecified desires for things that are not measured by GDP, that is a cheap and easy way of avoiding having to make real political decisions about costs and benefits. And in his book, he suggests that Christians don't care about lower taxes for global corporations or institutional investors. They may even have been actively hostile to those things. He praises Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters union, in his book. He says, quote, some GOP donors complained he sounded like a socialist. I thought Sean's arguments echoed a lot of the themes from traditional Christian social teaching.
And I'm sure there probably are points to be made inside of this too, as well. From a Christian angle too, in terms of probably what the philosophy that would be underlining how we should be operating if we were to be a outright and front Christian nation. But also the other point I would like to draw here too is understand the majority of where he's pulling this from too, which is just kind of funny, is from my understanding, this is coming from JD Vance's book called Communion, about his journey with his faith. And it's like, it's kind of funny that there's so many economic points in this book. You know, now I'm kind of tempted to actually go and read it. You know, I hate that I would be giving money to JD Vance, but I would like to kind of see and read this for myself. Because, you know, at first glance, it looks like a book that you would not be interested even in like the slightest. And then now it's, you know, okay.
Again, this is warmed over Sandersism. I wish it were not. It is what it is. Alrighty, coming up, we'll get to the vice president on his foreign policy. See, a lot of us didn't like the terms and conditions of the MOU, and that or HR business and facts, what you're assured in one assured all. And on Joe Rogan, he also talked a fair bit about foreign policy. Now, when it comes to foreign policy, the vice president's view of foreign policy is essentially that the United States ought to withdraw more from the world. That is his generalized view of American foreign policy. In his book, he writes at length about his view that essentially global foreign policy, particularly since the 1990s, were rotten. Quote, the fruits of your leadership are pointless wars of choice and declining life expectancy in your own country. Perhaps your life's work was for naught. He rips on Ukraine. He sort of avoids criticizing Russia in his book. He saves his most ardent rage for George W. Bush in his book. On Joe Rogan, he pushes, again, a bizarrely conciliatory policy toward Iran, and he sets up a series of straw men that he then sets on fire in order to promote the memorandum of understanding that he himself negotiated and then defended.
So now we're getting into the MOU, you know, and one point I wanted to go back to, which I think, and we just must have missed, but he says verbatim, and I quoted this from Shapiro, he says, Bernie Sanders plus the Pope is a narrow constituency. And it seems to be that in there he is making this argument, which is like, the JD Vance is like only appealing to like Bernie bros and Catholics, which to limit what he's saying about these kind of socialistic economic ideas and philosophies and directions to take to just Bernie bros is like that's just erroneous for one. and flawed. And, I think most people, I think the average person, especially with the kind of weakened economic state we are in right now, they would obviously be probably a lot more pro to these ideas. It's going to be a wider constituency. And again, just like how the tangibility element of people being able to have access, whether it be promised in one form or the other, most people are in the position of anything is better than the current thing right now. And press whatever, pull whatever lever, find whatever button you have to press, because surely whatever, the greenest grass are on the other side, because this is hell. This economic status is brutal. We are suffering. Surely anything is better than doing nothing and maintaining the status quo. But to liken it to Bernie bros and like just Pope lovers are gonna go with that. Like that's just, again, a very weak way to even frame his opposition to it.
Now, let me point out, day one of the MOU, I said it was a bad deal. Why? Because it's a bad deal. You know who agreed with me? 68% of Americans who thought the MOU was poorly negotiated and a bad deal. But the vice president, in order to defend his bad deal and his bizarre view of foreign policy in which Iran is, a potential friendly, and the Pakistanis are friendlies, and the Qataris are friendlies, and they're all friendlies. But also Israel manipulates our foreign policy. In order for the vice president to back that, he has to set up a series of straw men and then set them aflame. So on Joe Rogan, he suggests that the people criticizing the MOU have no alternative.
The people who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians, the reason why that's fundamentally idiotic is because so long as you have some person who's willing to fire off a few cheap drones, you're going to have some ship captains who say, no, we're not willing to do this. So we got to kind of use all tools at our disposal. The military is one tool, but diplomacy is another tool. And I'm very frustrated by the Americans and frankly by people in other countries who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. Well, then what is your proposal to get people to stop shooting at ships in the Strait of Hormuz? You can bomb them. You can take away their radar, you can take away some of their drones and some of their missiles, but it's just too easy to fire at ships in the straits.
Okay, so I would like to point out at this point, no one says you can't negotiate with the bad guys. The question is what kind of bad deal you cut with the bad guys.
So then he goes on, and I have much less timestamp for some of the rest here. But he then goes on, that's some of the main kind of accusations, right? Economic policy, foreign policy, and then we're going to get into his beef with JD on the MOU and his reasoning for the negotiations, what got negotiated, why it got negotiated, who it got negotiated for. And it's just, it just couldn't be any further from reality. And so at one point, he does liken JD Vance to Obama. He puts up Obama and he puts up the fact that Obama is putting forward Obama had some comment about Netanyahu some time ago. And that's what he's likening JD Vance to in this reference, which is to say that, there's alternate paths. And Ben Shapiro's like, I'm here every day giving alternate ideas and alternate ways we can get this problem solved. And it's like, but that's just not, that's irrespective of what's actually happening with the war. America right now, unless we actually enact a ground invasion or we start enacting nuclear war, we are right now in no position to be making demands of anyone. America is losing the war with Iran. Now, as of recent, since the MOU has fully broken open, that seems to be changing. Why? Because we are radically escalating. Because we are now bombing their southern coast in a much more aggressive pattern than we have before, with, I can only assume, the purpose and reason being is because we are trying to push some of their mobile launching sites, as well as just them in their entirety, further away from the coastline to allow breathability and breathing room for an American ground invasion to begin docking and building some form of a temporary base of operations on the Iranian southern coast to begin a meaningful ground operation, one that's not just them dropping in from helicopters and paratrooping in, which would inevitably result in extreme casualties. Either way, he does bring up these, he brings up all this, stuff with Obama. But then Ben Shapiro goes on to say that Iran is the one that violated the MOU, and he's also bringing this up as a reference of their bad. This is why you can't really negotiate with them. And the same breath he's saying, I didn't say you can't say you can negotiate them, that he kind of contradicts himself. But we know that is true, but it is omitting what? What is that omitting? Well, it's omitting that we, by technicality, violated the ceasefire first. And how did we violate the ceasefire first? Well, what was the first point of the Memorandum of Understanding? The very first point of the Memorandum of Understanding was that Israel would halt its hostilities and activities in Lebanon. Did they ever stop? Has it ever stopped? No. So Iran, even from the very beginning, it was already a very fragile ceasefire. We, by effect of being the people who are all account like in charge of Israel, which it is what it is, because we did not restrain Israel, we did not put forward sanctions, we did not in any way, shape, or form go anything beyond the very fence-sitting comments that JD Vance put out at that, timid at that, cowardly even, I would say, only to get packed in by Randy Fine, this disgusting, I don't know if he didn't call him an anti-Semite, but he said the comments were disgusting or inflammatory. Okay. Well, what? And then, but Ben is going to, but here's Ben crying that Iran is in violation of the MOU. And why is Iran in violation of the MOU? Well, it's because they started ballistic bombing and droning commercial tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. And why was that? Well, why are they bombing the tankers? Well, this is not a direct reaction to them, to the engaging of Lebanon and Israel. This is a reaction to the fact that there's some kind of like muddied language around the joint ownership of the Strait of Hormuz. And the reason being is, well, Iran believed that they were going to have the full-blown sovereignty. Iran believed that they were going to have, they were going to be like the dictator of it, with some involvement from Oman. But because Oman, in coordination with, I believe, some portions of the United States, developed a route on the southern coast that hugs Oman, the Omani coast, the southern side of the strait, I should say. Well, Iran said, these people aren't paying their fair share. They're not coming, they're not running to the IRGC. Where's our cut? And then they started bombing all these people in the shore. These tankers, these commercial tankers, just lighting them up. Say this is what you get for not going through the IRGC if you wanted to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. But Ben Shapiro entirely omits anything to do with the Israeli involvement on that side of the MOU, and is wholeheartedly trying to say and uses this as an example of why we can't negotiate with Iran is because, look, they're already in violation of the MOU, but completely omitting any element in reaction of why Iran would have been doing so. Now, I don't have the timestamp for this, and I really wish that I would have, is that later on, he does touch upon the story of Brad Parscale, okay? And Brad Parscale is the one who, again, registered under FARA September 2025. He's a foreign agent for Israel. He runs the LLC, I think it's an LLC, called Clock Tower X. Propaganda wing, pushing Hasbara in this country. Shapiro subtly hints, and I really wish I had the timestamp for this. I might have to look it up. He subtly hints that he believes the senior official who leaked the story about Brad Parscale is JD Vance himself. And I feel like to even make a claim like that, I need to be able to show it, but I don't want to play the next like 15 minutes of this and still not find it. So what I am going to do, I'm going to pull up the transcript on here. I'm going to show you guys a way we can actually find specific things. Let me see here. I don't know. Do I have Wonder? Let me just type in Parscale. Well, that is about worthless. Lovely, lovely YouTube. Great technology. Thank you. I'm glad all those Indian engineers you brought in this country was able to give me this. I was going to say, like, Lord have mercy. Let me get rid of this. I'm going to just control F it. That search tab is disgusting. We're going to be looking for What did he say? Par scale? Man, I might need to refresh this. These tools are so worthless. This is what you get when you have a bunch of brown people making your stuff.
To get people.
Okay. I just want the full transcript. I won't even type a button in. So I want to find the timestamp for this. So this would be, let me do Control F, it'll be easier. Par scale? Or can I not do this anymore? Right here. Oh my gosh, perfect. 3028. 3028. Listen to what he says. You can see the caption right there too.
It's just silly. That article in Time magazine, by the way, doesn't even say that. It was planted by, quote, a senior U.S. official. Who could it be? I don't know. It's so mysterious. A senior U.S. official plants a piece in Time magazine about how there is some sort of paid operation against him. The only person who is named is Trump's former presidential campaign manager and digital guru, a guy named Brad Parscale. Brad Parscale is literally registered. I mean, this is not a hidden story. He registered under FARA. And he himself denied having been a part of any of this. And by the way, if he had paid anyone to actually go and make those posts, they too would have had to register under FARA.
Much like AIPAC should be registered under FARA. And are they? No. No, they are not. Is Mark Levin registered under FARA? Is Laura Loomer registered under FARA? We know that the Esther Project is a reality. We know that Project Esther is a reality. We also know that the only reason that the Israeli geofencing campaign done in Christian areas, the only reason that was even registered under FARA was because of the American correspondents wanted to be well within the law. Insert many other FARA programs, or people who should be registered under FARA. These Hasbara programs, Hasbara, propaganda wings. So this is, not to spend a bunch of time on Ben Shapiro, by all means. But Ben Shapiro is not the only one. Ben Shapiro is perhaps maybe one of the most vocal, one of the most followed, maybe one of the most impactful. But he's definitely not the only one. And they are knives out for JD Vance. So Michael Knowles, believe it or not, Michael Knowles also joined in on this. Michael Knowles, and I'll play the video here in a second. Michael Knowles says, let me see if I understand this argument. Vance is anti-Israel because he compared Israel to France and the UK, the greatest allies we've ever had, which are respectively responsible for our independence and our entire country. Interesting. To this day, I never learned that the United Kingdom, that Great Britain was responsible for our independence. Let alone our country. I guess if he's saying respectively, he's referencing the UK to our country. Let's go ahead and play this video. What is it from Marilyn Gibbons? It says, Vance is blaming Israel on Joe Rogan, claiming that members of the Israeli government pay to activate a malicious campaign against him, and they can all go to hell.
This very discreet, extremely well-funded campaign to try to derail the negotiation and try to derail the deal. And, there's this Time article that came out yesterday. A friend sent it to me. It's like worth reading because it lists a bunch of people who have quite literally been paid by a former Trump campaign person who was himself paid by certain elements within the Israeli government. And those people are attacking me viciously for quite literally trying to accomplish the negotiation objective that the president set for the country. So
what is their position?
And remember, Ben Shapiro and everybody else who's in this pro-Israel camp want you to think that it's ludicrous, ridiculous that's even a thing, even though Netanyahu himself spent a copious amounts of time in the United States of America, largely was in New York, doing what? Spreading and pushing the message that Israel is in their 8th front war. Does anyone know what this 8th front was? What was this 8th front that Netanyahu was referencing? This new front, the war on all sides Israel's facing, but now there's this new front they have to fight, this 8th front that they need to tackle head on and recruit the American influencers into. What was it? Media. Thank you. It was the information war. That was the 8th front. And they've spent, and we know, Deborah Leah, Emily Austin, Xavier DeRusso, possibly even Officer Tatum. Many, many influencers were right there. They were going to the meetings. They're taking the photos with Netanyahu. And then months later, Ben Shapiro, Knowles and company want to laugh at you for thinking it's even happening at all. If this was happening, they'd all be registered under FARA. Again, what happened to the last guy who tried to get AIPAC to register under FARA? He didn't even make it out of Texas. It is laughably absurd. Some of the claims and arguments from these people. Laughably absurd. And to even pull out the whole, like, you must be insane, or like, that's ludicrous. That would never happen. If that was happening, our government would be telling us about it. Sometimes you just got to look at this stuff and you just got to laugh. Because in what world? In what world? Well, play the rest of it.
They're attacking you how?
Oh, it's social media posts. It's they're leaking to reporters. They're attacking me obsessively, saying that we should not be negotiating with Iran. We should just keep the military campaign going indefinitely. And that is their explicit position. And coming after me, saying that people have come after me and say that I'm influenced by Qatar, that I'm influenced by foreign governments, that I take my marching orders from Tucker Carlson, and there's just so much bullshit out there, when what I'm actually trying to do is accomplish what the President of the United States told me to accomplish, which is a settlement of this that accomplishes our objectives. Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. We have the free flow of oil and gas. And like, I should be clear, I don't actually mind. I don't mind that let's say certain elements of the Israeli government want to criticize the deal or have disagreements about the deal. I don't even mind an effort to try to influence, foreign governments try to influence the United States all the time. Israel does it, other countries do it. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. What bothers me is actually when Americans meaning American leadership, allows that influence to affect their judgment and to affect what they are advocating for. That's what really bothers me. People are always going to try to influence the United States of America, whether they're allies of ours or whether they're enemies of ours. But again, when I open up the pages of Time magazine and I see that there's a literal foreign influence campaign being funded to tank the very deal that I was pursuing, and oh, by the way, many of the people who were receiving that money were actually attacking me in completely dishonest ways, my response to that is, well, go to hell. I'm going to do what I have to do for the American people. I represent Americans first.
And so again, why do you think that it's affecting him so negatively? Like why he would be in such a position to defend the MOU? Well, again, all of this is leveraging off of the fact that one of the mechanisms at play here is that Vance he will entirely intend to run for president in 2028. Even going into the early stages of 2024, he was seen as the heir apparent. Many people were going, well, we have the next 8 years solved. Trump, and then we'll get Vance, and maybe Vance runs for a second term. MAGA's got this. We got it next for the next 12 years. Well, and then we didn't get the mass deportations. And then we didn't get any economic fix. And then the H-1Bs were being argued against with the constituents. And then the Iran war. And the Iran war, JD Vance knows it, I know it, you know it, he, she, we know it, is going to reflect negatively on him, on his path to being president. He's going to have to answer for the Iranian war on the debate stage. He's going to be attacked both front and back for it. So what is the best thing for JD Vance to do to avoid being attacked in a complete onslaught for his involvement with this administration and their willingness to go to war? He goes, yes, but I was the one who went for peace. I was the one who I tried to do the ceasefire. He's putting himself in the way. He's diving in front like it's a bullet. Why? Because he needs to both, one, get rid of the overwhelming knives out attack when that will be coming, and secondarily, be able to build some level of argument for himself that is like, no, like I tried, like I did everything. It gives him some level of an escape route from taking the full brunt of the war claims on the debate stage. Now, the left will still probably push the fact that he was still open to engaging in any large-scale assault. They may still point to the fact that the first thing he said when he walked off stage at the RNC after being introduced and selected as vice president was, we got to strike Iran. But even then, he at least, in some form or another, as much as it may be a little bit of an illusion, it might not even be much of a thing, it still is something he can throw as a defense of like, hey, no, I tried peace. And so that's why he's taking it so to heart, and like why he's getting so irritated by this is because what the pro-Israel lobby is doing now is soiling it in the beginning, which is to say, this MOU was so bullshit. You are capitulating to Iran. This is a terrible deal. You did a terrible deal. So he has to fight back against the pressures here. So when it's brought to, in a year from now, it'll not be seen as this just thing that he capitulated to Iran for, but that he actually did some kind of meaningful, diplomacy with this country. Forgive me. To move away from that, I wanted to go back to Bruesewitz, because Bruesewitz has been active today by a mile. And Bruesewitz, now this is going to be very, very tiny for you to see, but this is many different prominent accounts on here. I don't know why he formatted it like this, to be completely honest with you. But he did. And the caption is that it's important to remember, that all these accounts that are trashing Vance for appearing on Rogan's podcast opposed President Trump in the 2024 primary. So now you have Bruesewitz, who's also under fire by the same people, is now coming to the defense of Vance. Which, in effect, could be coincidence, or also what I would imagine Bruesewitz is probably also eyeing a spot in the JD Vance administration. And so it's like it's James Mitchell. I can't even read some of these. My eyes are miserable. Jimmy Mitchell, Bonch, I don't know who those two are. AG, who I've seen occasionally, Mark Levin, Bethany Mandel, who's just really gone insane. You have Han Shanady. You have Max Abrams. You have so if you're not familiar with these are some of the more prominent and extremely pro-Israel accounts that exist on X. Basically, that's all they essentially do at their time, is just scream at the top of their lungs about anti-Semitism and pro-Israel issues. Let me get rid of some of these here too. But it's already kind of working against Shapiro in a way, in general. Some of the Israeli lobby coming out, knives out like this. Even C.J. Pearson, who's somebody who I also don't like, is then also saying that the same Ben Shapiro who didn't support Trump in 2016 abandoned him in 2020 and actively worked against him in 24, wants you to know he does not like JD Vance. You really can't get a better endorsement than this. And I will imagine that this is actually how it will work. Seeing JD Vance as oppositional to Shapiro, seeing them butting heads, seeing them arguing back and forth and being in contention with another. It's going to be it'll be a bit of an endorsement for some people. for Vance. And much like we have long suspected, I mean, this is a little bit of Vance reaching out into the overall ether, the overall space. For one, his presidential run. Two, you're going to need to be able to go away from MAGA. You can't rely on MAGA. I mean, what even is MAGA anymore besides this extremely gnashing at the teeth pro-Israel group? So more cards are laying on the table. More cards are landing on the table. And it was almost inevitable that JD Vance would be moving to such a position, given the fact that if the Iran war was not resolved, did not get an answer, you are going to see this. You are going to see this. I mean, he has to. How can you run for president only hoping on MAGA, and what you're running on is the betrayal of everything that MAGA was? You guys, again, I'll say it for like the 10th time. You guys want 4 more years of this? That is not a winning campaign. So it was inevitable that JD Vance was going to be breaking away. And the one thing I did find curious about all of this is actually that Caroline Leavitt is actually backing up JD Vance. So here's a shorter clip here. And I caught this as well. But you'll see that, oh, get rid of it. Maybe they edited the post. Hold on. Caroline Leavitt, JD Vance. Here we go. Like a little bit of a longer clip, longer than I would like to, but let's just do this 40-second one here. So the White House backs Vance's Israel remarks. That's the claim here. What's up, Orthodox Boomer Grandma? I haven't seen you in a while. We just play the clip here? Lord have mercy.
Iran. The Vice President, JD Vance, went on this podcast with Joe Rogan yesterday, talked about Israel, in which he said that there are some people within their system that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt who are manipulating and trying to change American public opinion to keep the war going on indefinitely. Does the president agree with that statement?
I think the president would certainly agree that, yes, foreign countries certainly do try to persuade American public opinion. There's no doubt about that. I think it's just a basic fact.
So, not like she says JD Vance. I'm like, we all support JD Vance and everything he said on the podcast. But in terms of the sentiment there, which would be the same sentiment that's being pushed by Alex Bruesewitz, which is, it is just a truth that there's foreign involvement in this country and there's foreign money that's pushing it. And there's more than just one country that's doing it. There's more than Israel. There's more than Qatar. You have China, Russia, India, Pakistan. You go down the line. But Israel and Ben Shapiro want you to believe that the only people who aren't doing it, like it's an insane, or impossible that Israel would be doing this. And not to mention, we have how many different Jewish programs that have been in effect since October 7th? How many different groups of influencers, ambassadorships that have been pushing it? Explicitly themselves, with Netanyahu and the ADL and other elements, other groups like that, all saying the same thing. Eighth Front War, we have to fight this. The Israeli Knesset 5-timesing the budget in 2024, then 20-timesing the budget in 2025 to the tune of like some hundreds of millions of dollars at the ready, purely for what? For being able to send money to places like Google. Right, and that one we knew the explicit details of. It was something to the effect of it was like $40 million split between X and YouTube and it was X, Google, and like some other random third company. All for what? To fight the Eighth Front War. Money flowing to this economy purely from the Israeli government, purely for the intention of boosting their image in this nation to increase their ability to leverage their own self-interest. But you talk to Ben Shapiro about it, he laughs in your face and says, surely the government would tell you they'd all register, they'd all do the right thing. they'd all do the right thing and go tell on themselves. They're all going to wear the badge. I work for Israel. It's like, dude, you have to be stupid to believe that stuff, man. And I'm not even trying to be mean. But you have to lack some cognitive faculties to be believing stuff like that. And let's just be honest too. I mean, the Daily Wire, The Daily Wire in and of itself is literally a Hezbollah wing. That is its purpose. It doesn't exist to tell you the news. It exists to curate the news. It exists as a take seller, but a take seller that just tells you Israel's correct and right, and we should defend it, support it, and anyone telling you otherwise is a deranged anti-Semite. It's just ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous in the sense of how obvious it is. It's ridiculous in the sense of how overt it is. And if you have just simply been paying attention to the news cycle for even the last year, even if you just started paying attention October 7th, 2023, and from here on out, you would know that it is laughably insane. And even if you just remove the Israeli element out of it, this concept that there's not massive amounts of foreign money flowing through this country in different entities and in different formats and categories that I probably can't even think of because it's so numerous. I don't even know what to tell you. Being able to just read from the news, from Israel itself, they are expanding their budget for the sole purpose of boosting Israel's relationship and image in foreign nations. And what do you think they're spending the money at? They're spending it in the casinos in Tel Aviv? Yeah, that'll really help them. That'll really boost the American opinion of Americans towards Israel. We're just going to throw all this money in Tel Aviv. Like, no, not even close. So, and just to show you how desperate they're getting, how far this is going, this actually caught me off guard, but Batya Ungar-Sargon, who is a Zionist leftist who has been outspoken recently, we wouldn't even have the left. We wouldn't even have civil rights. We wouldn't even have all of this if it weren't for Jews. Self-reporting. Batya Ungar-Sargon, a Zionist leftist, claims that JD Vance is thirsting for Groyper appeal. You're seeing this photo here. And I believe this is an article that she wrote, I would imagine. Unsure what the platform is. Don't even care. It is laughable. Laughable and insane. So, there's a bit more to it than that. Some stuff I think I'll react to later on the Kick stream. We do have, again, the presidential primetime address is coming up. It's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern. But one thing that I will play for you that is just even more laughably insane is Mike Pompeo saying that the people, these House Democrats who voted for the bill, for the amendment that Thomas Massie put forward, that would strip Israeli support and reduce it to nothing, are anti-Semitic. Here's this.
Today, over 100 House Democrats voted for a measure to block billions of dollars in weapons to Netanyahu. That is enormous progress.
Did you see this coming?
You know, it's always been out there latent, Harris. This is anti-Semitic. When you hear him say Netanyahu, you can frankly substitute Jew for that. That's what he means when he says that. These are a group of people, and now broadly inside the Democrat Party. In fact, it's difficult, save for maybe Senator Fetterman, it is difficult to find a Democrat who will say, hey, these are our great partners. These are our trusted friends. The Israelis have saved countless American lives, including alerting us to a plot against our president within the past few weeks. These are amazing security, economic, and diplomatic partners for us. And to watch the Democrat Party walk away from this and say,
yeah, guys, you heard it from Mike Pompeo himself. Just say Jew. It's cleaner.
a deep way. It's appalling to me. It's a little bit surprising that it's happened so quickly. And I think the cooler heads inside the Democrat Party need to retake this fundamental understanding about who our friends are, and that the Iranians are our adversary and the nation of Israel is our partner and friend.
Today.
And you even have Fetterman coming out and saying things to the effect of, like, oh my goodness, like man, if the Democrat Party ever becomes the anti-Israel party, like, I'll just have to leave. I'll just have to leave. And so you already have some of these guys who are already coming out in arms. And so right now it does look like the Democrat Party is kind of split near like close to 50-50, maybe a little bit less than that, maybe more so like 45-55, where you do have 45% of the party is willing to vote for this bill. And that bill was like what was like merged together. I believe it was, I think Nick did a great point, did a great job talking about this and highlighting this. But it was not only just was it the military aid, it also combined that and the humanitarian aid. Something that you would expect leftists would not be willing to go for, and some of which did put up a little bit of an argument. But I don't know. I guess here's kind of the real crux of things. What I would say. Let me get rid of this. It burns my eyeballs out of my skull. Is I don't really know what the right wing is going to expect if, on one hand, you have the left, right? You have the left is about to be wielding economic populism. They're going to be the ones that are like, even if it's retarded stuff, it doesn't matter. Just engage with the hypothetical for a second. If they are pushing for things like, UBI and decreasing house prices, and even if they want to put, taxes on billion, whatever that is, if they are wielding economic populism, they're pushing for better housing prices, better job market, even if they're saying increasing the minimum wage to whatever stupid amount that is, and also are going, and are also becoming the anti-Israel party, off of the major momentum wing where you have the most high-profile assassination case, I would wager even probably of all time, with Charlie Kirk, where the center seems to be that most people are kind of done with Israel. You're going to have the economic populism and the anti-Israel crowd conjoining on one side. I mean, like that's why I'm saying like JD Vance has got to start meeting them where they are, or he has no chance in 2028. Which is why he's opening up and taking some of these positions. I don't think it's because he's honest about these positions. Some of them he may be. The Israel one I'm less sure of. But he's starting to have to meet them where they are now. Because if he doesn't, you're basically going to have the left becoming a powerhouse. And even if those ideas are dumb, raising the minimum wage to $25 an hour, dumb, stupid. But it doesn't matter. You know why? Because the average person is stupid. So this is what you have, like, this is what is coming in 2028. And again, we're already kind of in this little bit of this back and forth where the midterms is really the whole reason why we're not even going harder against Iran. And so now, because this war has drug out the way that it has, we're kind of in this position where we're probably not going to commence a ground operation until we get past the midterms. And then once we get past the midterms, then it's like maybe all hell will break loose. And then we might see a ground invasion. And then at that point, it's not going to really matter because Trump is not going to be concerning himself with winning the next election. At that point, Trump will only be concerned with, does he still have the kingmaker ability where when he says, I want that guy, I'm endorsing that candidate, will they win? That'll be what Trump will be concerned about. Still a lot of time, but I heavily fear that the left might not only just win in the midterms, but they also may fully come to take reign in 2028. And not that I even fear that for Democrats are going to destroy the world. I do fear for it in terms of, if that is any way successful, I mean, will there be a referendum on that in 2032? To go into the thinking, the long-term thinking of Nick, which is to say, like, if they do win in 28, because he says it in the frame of, well, he's kind of thinking in terms of the populace. Maybe the populace does need to sit through 4 more years of a Democrat president. And maybe then they'll be ready to finally decide what and who they want as a culture, how and what we should be as Americans, what our interests should be. Or do the Democrats knock it out of the park? Everything falls apart. The white majority dissipates. And they become, in effect, the anti-Israel economic party. And, I mean, those Republicans get cut off from there. there's a lot of time in there. It's obviously huge amounts of speculation, but it does seem to be that is what it is shaping up to be right now. Which is the Democrats are going to be the party that's talking about housing and UBI and the AI bubble, and they're also going to be filled with people who are anti-Israel. Now, not in the same way that we talk about it. They'll talk about it from Israel being this like a colonial state and they're oppressing the Palestinians. But at this point, do you guys even care? Like, do you care what reason someone has for not wanting to support Israel? Like, I don't care anymore. And I would wager many people don't care anymore. And I would wager all these same people who think that, you know, that Israel has this major involvement with Charlie Kirk, do you think they're going to care either? They may be heated off of what happens in the trial, and they're going to go at anything to stick one down to Israel. We couldn't get anything in the trial with Charlie Kirk. F it. We're voting Democrat. We're voting for anything that goes and attacks Israel. Anything that will begin to chip away at what Israel has become and is in this country. So, a lot happening. JD Vance, knives out. Will he go all the way? Will JD Vance put on the America First hat? I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot can happen, man. It's never Vance because obviously what he got groomed for and where he's come from. But he may be in a position where he might just start lying to lie, to do anything he can to be seen and be taken seriously as a political figure. Up against whether it's Gavin Newsom or Hunter Biden or John Ossoff or, Lord help us, Kamala Harris.
You don't seem to understand. Earth isn't yours to conquer.
Anonymous
Huge.
sent $5.
Huge.
I think your legislation on trans issues and your legislation specifically protecting queers on
W9.
the sex offender registry is fantastic. Like, I really applaud you for that, and I think you deserve to be here for that. But I think your housing policy, and specifically your housing policy aligning with YIMBYs, and I think your policy, and I think your policy on the genocide in Gaza, I think your policy on the genocide in Gaza is terrible. I think you do not belong here. I think you do not belong here. You do not belong here, Scott, anymore. It sucks because you've been wonderful. You've been wonderful for trans people, and you've been terrible. And you've been terrible. You've been terrible. You've been.
Yeah, that escalated quickly. W, though, for Anonymous for the 5. I do appreciate it very much. Thank you, my friend. It is, yeah, I mean, this Scott Wiener, I mean, this is the left eating their own. You know, these are a bunch of these transgenders who are mad at Scott Wiener because he's not been the best towards the Palestine issue and the Israel issue overall. And it just goes to show you that, you know, I mean, even on the left has their own, and just insane belief structure. But, you know, why? Because Scott Wiener's Jewish. Amen. It's just, I mean, it's showing you, like, I mean, it's clearly, it's rising. Like think about it from that perspective. Like, what was he actually even saying? He said, you've been great for the trans issue. You've been great for the trans issue. But for Palestine, you've been, and it's like, that's enough. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he was good on the trans issue. It doesn't matter that he does all these weird and gay things in public. What mattered is the fact that he is not anti-Israel enough. He is not pro-Palestine enough. So you just have this clear, I mean, you have this clear this dichotomy building where the right wing is like almost exclusively and completely pro-Israel down the line. The left, on the other hand, seems to be fighting back a little bit. And largely because of their belief of Palestine and free Palestine and their oppressor versus the oppressed dynamic, their I would say even insane worldview. So I there's a lot of breathing room here. There's a lot of breathing room going on here that could open itself up to the left really making some strides and gaining votes from people that you would have never expected. And largely because it could just be because of the Israel issue. Having a more pronounced, more explicit anti-Israel. And additionally, also being a party that starts making promises for stimmy checks or minimum wage or, I mean, all those things. And you got to think about how the average person is going to vote. What is the average person going to go out of their way to go vote for? Another batch of promises from the right wing as they scream at the top of their lungs at each other about Israel, or the left wing who's offering to give you free checks and, you know, down with Israel. I think at that point, many people might even say, you know, I don't care. I don't care if they're giving welfare programs to blacks and third worlders and they're bringing in the borders. All that matters to me is anti-Israel. And think about some of the pundits who are already on these wavelengths, right? You have somebody like Veroyum. You know, he might be getting ratioed left and right by Keith Woods. It doesn't stop the fact that Veroyum still has the views that he does because people believe in that. Those are their positions. Less concerned with the racial dynamic of the country, more concerned with just the simple idea that is, we are not our own sovereign nation so long as we maintain this extreme and excessive toxic parasitical relationship with Israel. So it's kind of where we are. You know, so get ready. In a couple, in a couple years, it's probably going to be the intro song. That's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. But hey, at least we got a chance to get rid of Israel. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut things down on this side of the channel on YouTube. I'm going to be getting ready to start it back up on Kick. And so give me just a couple of minutes to switch things over. Make sure I can get and find the right stream to be able to have up so we can watch this primetime address. And again, for those, to prime you guys for those, again, seemingly going to be reports about the illegitimacy or legitimacy of the 2020 election, Chinese influence, as well as perhaps maybe even going a step further and flat out claiming that those who were elected between both John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock were elected in illegitimate elections. And again, I saw some report earlier this week that talked about Fauci, but since then, I've not seen many about that yet. Or since, I should say. It seems to be more about the legitimacy of the election and specifically the foreign influence from China. So, with that, guys, going to go ahead and stop the shop here. I appreciate all the support, everybody that came from, Mr. Moss, Mitch, and Anonymous. Thank you very much. And for those who sent in the memberships as well, to get the memberships, thank you greatly. All the support means the world. I appreciate it. My wife appreciates it. And my daughters appreciate it. So thank you greatly. And with that, without further ado, because we can't get our deportations, we will settle for impeachments. So impeach this entire administration, impeach JD Vance, impeach Trump, impeach everybody, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, rehire Dan Bongino, impeach him again, or impeach him the first time, I should say. And bring the Democrats. Let them run rampant in these midterms. Let's force these investigations. I want to see committee after committee after committee. I want the corruption expunged. I want it brought to light. I want the GOP's brand weakened. I want it rendered almost useless. And for the women, any woman over 150 pounds, you're getting shot from a cannon to Israel, no questions asked. I will do it myself. And for anyone between 125 and 150 pounds, this is your 90-day notice to lose the weight, or you too will be shot from a cannon to Israel. Until next time, guys, or else you want to follow me on Kick, I will see you guys over there in a couple of minutes. Peace out.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out! Christ is Lord!